porch and think I got candy because I don't have any candy. I never get trick-or-treaters.
We don't either. I live in like an old person's neighborhood, so I don't think we've ever had a trick-or-treater ring the doorbell. We always get the candy, but nobody ever comes.
That's okay, too. I love candy.
Yeah, it works. Always have it stocked. Gives us an excuse to buy it.
Right? So, man, how long ago did you start TikTok and run your lives? I mean, talk about that growth. When I hop into your lives,
10K,
dude,
10K, 10K.
it's huge. I mean, the amount of viewers you pull is just amazing. When did you see that growth? How long you been at it?
So I started TikTok right around February 20th, and I wasn't really successful at first. I didn't really know what people wanted to see. I didn't even break double digits on my live for the first couple months. Then I started showing the venomous stuff. I thought the big pythons would really get people's attention. Then I started showing more of the venomous stuff, and that's what kind of took off. I see what people want to see is mainly the different venomous, the different rattlesnakes, the different vipers, especially the cobras. Cobras seem to be the favorite.
Okay. When you're on your show, I notice usually, I mean, it's not wise to have less than 100% focus with with the animals like that. And I definitely want to hear more about that process as we chat. But do you ever move animals on the lives from enclosure to enclosure, with your hook training, or do they always stay in? Or how best are you the most comfortable when you have a camera on to not only teach people how to be safe or set a good example, whether you do that behind closed doors or not? Like when you're on these, it's a different metric you're measured by. So what do you do to kind of balance that between being safe and being entertaining?
So it kind of depends on the species. Some of the more wild ones like the cobras and the bush vipers, stuff that's really likely to strike you, we just kind of do that behind the glass. But things like gaboon vipers, rhino vipers, jumping vipers, the stuff that's really placid, I can put that on a table. It's not really going to go anywhere. That's easy for me to maintain with one hook. It's not going to like lash out at me. A cobra could take off. A bush viper, they're just kind of sporadic. So it just really depends on what species it is, and that's what I'm able to focus on. I want to focus on the audience. I want to answer their questions. I want to be able to be as interactive with them as possible, and I can't do that if I've got a 21-foot retic on the ground or a really angry monocle cobra. So I just kind of film those behind the glass, and all the more placid stuff, it can go on a table about 2 or 3 feet in front of me.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I don't pretend to know anything about venomous. I mean, I've opened the lid and fed them and closed the lid when I worked at a reptile shop the year before I worked at the zoo, but I've never interacted with them or handled them or ever been trained in any way. Who was a mentor that kind of helped you? Dredd, you look better. Dredd for president. That is one creepy ass mask, dude.
So I had a lot of different mentors when I first got started. Don Kleckner was the first mentor that really taught me the basics. He's a great dude, super safe with everything. He has a lot of obscure species, though. Stuff that I wouldn't say I have too much of an interest keeping. I kind of like some of the more basic stuff, the monocles, things like that. He has species you're going to have to look in a textbook for. Stuff you're not going to see at a reptile show. So it was really good to learn the basics from him. Really good to get a good grasp on that stuff. And that's where I got my first venomous, which is my jumping viper. So that's the only thing I think we share in common. Then after that, I kind of had to find different ones that kept the things that I kept. So I was self-taught on the rattlesnake. I definitely don't recommend doing that for most people. I got lucky. My Western Diamondback is incredibly sweet. But as far as like cobras go, I had to get different advice from like Cobra Meg, Jared up in Richmond. There's a few different individuals. Chris Blake, another great one nearby. So a lot of people that taught me a lot of different things. He taught me a lot about bush vipers. So different people for different species.
Interesting, huh? Because their behaviors and attitudes are so different. And then I guess perhaps there's signs of becoming irritated or cranky. What you need to look out for in each animal probably varies, I would assume.
Exactly. The behavior is so different with all of them. So, I mean, if you get training on a gaboon viper, it doesn't mean you're ready for a cobra. Just because you got training on a cobra doesn't mean a gaboon viper, vice versa. A lot of the stereotypes, too. I thought gaboon vipers were incredibly placid. That was one of the biggest, mess-ups when I first started. And I think it was day 2 of training. I saw a giant gaboon viper absolutely lose its mind and take off. And it was just like, okay, that's what you have to expect them on their worst day. So I was lucky enough to have people that had some of the more defensive, more upset animals, just stuff that they have, maybe some wild caught stuff to work with. If you can handle on their worst day, you can handle almost any time.
That's awesome.
But that's actually good advice you're giving out right there. If anybody's, messing with them or wanting to mess with venomous, no two are alike, right? It's a different species. It's a, gaboon, rattlesnake, whatever it is you want to work with, cobra. They're totally different snakes. Venomous is venomous, but their attitude and behavior is going to be different. So you got to handle them different, correct?
Absolutely. Even with Western Diamondbacks and monocle cobras, which are really common, those are some of the best examples. Like Texas Pete, my albino, he's only struck at me twice in the few years I've had him. But there's other Western Diamondbacks that they're ready to go. So you've probably seen different lives. You walk in the room and they're already tail going, ready to rock and roll. So they really are all different. Now, genetic, where they came from really do matter. Wild caught versus captive bred. Captive bred stuff is going to be a whole lot easier to work with than that wild caught. It's going to be a whole lot less defensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Like out here, the only thing like if we go out herping, the rattlesnakes we have out here in California, right? You got a snake hook. I'm not handling them. I use a snake hook and do our thing. But yeah, you got to be mindful. There's still always that chance, even with one of these guys, you're going to get got.
And there's different handling. Everybody has different ways that they use stuff. Like with big monocle cobras, I was taught to hook and tail them. One of my mentors does double hook. It's incredibly hard. It's incredibly long process getting them calmed down where you can actually do it. But everybody has their own way of doing stuff to try to be safe. Right. So I try to learn those different tactics. Even Eric, a reptile, he's in the chat. He came up here. He taught me a better way to kind of hook and tail the rattlesnakes, letting them come out of the bucket a little bit, leaning their head over. It's like, okay, just a little bit easier to do. Gives you a little bit more control over them. So you always pick up on those little tips and tricks from different people over time. Everybody does, just because there's not one set way to do things. There's a few different ways.
But you notice, right? I mean, I watch some of this, as well. But you notice the more you can be calm and careful and have a good calm energy, right? And you want to keep your animal, the stress levels low, right? So they're not into that fight or flight instinct. Correct? Kind of talk about that, Maybe we're beating a dead horse here.
No, that's exactly it. So different ones, it's going to require like different speeds, if that makes sense. With rattlesnakes, you kind of just go in there and hook them real quick, and it's over before you know it. But like with cobras, they're pretty fast. You kind of got to mess with them a couple times. You got to let them run their energy, nervous energy. I always equate it to like when you come home, your dog loses its mind, right? It's wagging its tail. It's zooming all over the place. When you wake up in the morning, your cat's probably jumping from counter to counter waiting to feed it. Same concept with the snakes. It's anxiety. It's stress when it comes to those animals. So, once you kind of get that nervous energy out, it's a lot better. Whether it's a retic, a ball python, they all kind of wind down at different levels. Monocle cobras, yes. I've kind of learned it takes them a little more time to calm down. But they will. Eventually they do calm down. It just takes a couple of movements with that hook.
The two hook technique, I could imagine, is very difficult. The hook being slick by nature, round and metal, and the animal there's a point of breakover where that weight, the center of gravity gets past the front hook, let's say, and then they plop to the floor or they sling around. And so I can totally appreciate how balancing a moving noodle on two slick hooks has got to be incredibly hard. Do you practice that? Do you like that method? Or are you more hook and tail, or is the species dictate it all?
Yeah, it definitely depends on the species. And also, like, even your cage placement, too. I have stuff stacked almost to the ceiling. You drop if you were to drop a gaboon viper from chest level to floor, you might break a rib on that animal. So I always try to keep like the heavier bodied stuff on the bottom. It's just easier to work with anyway. And you kind of got to even like plan that. Monocle cobras are a lot lighter. I kind of keep those up top for the most part. Rattlesnakes usually in the middle. So, always planning that where you're going to cage them. Worst case scenario, if they did plop out of the floor. Like I've got a really mean rhino viper, big, a little over 4 foot rhino, and she'll pop out at you. But my biggest fear, if I have her 3 or 4 feet off the ground, she falls to that floor. I mean, you could kill her. So, you always want to be really careful about that stuff. As far as like the actual hook stuff goes, I don't like to hook and tail bittis. I always double hook. It's just a personal preference. They can whip around. And if you've ever fed an adult gaboon viper or adult rhino, even an adult puff adder, they are powerful little things. And they can whip around. And it'll throw you off guard, especially complacency, too. That's how almost all people get bit, is complacency and lack of training. So
I heard on one of your lives recently, I like to pop in, you said the taipan was one that is starting to warm your heart over a little bit.
It is.
Why is that?
Just, I guess, kind of due to recent events, and down there in South Carolina, a lot of people want to know about it. I kind of always ruled it out as a species I never wanted to work with. But kind of work. I've been able to work with a couple of babies over time. Some of them wild caught, some captive bred. Not wild caught. Some CBB. My bad. And they're just kind of have personalities all over the place. So some of them are very wiggly. Some of them are a little bit calmer. But at the end of the day, they really don't want to bite you. They really don't want to come after you. So I always found that kind of interesting. They will, obviously, but if you just kind of if you do the proper techniques with them, they're not going to be too bad. That takes a lot of skill. I don't have that skill set yet.
Where are you going? I see all of our experienced hot keepers down here just going to town in the chat, making
they are
out here.
Grab it by the midsection. I love it, Will. I see it.
Yeah.
So it looks like your wallaby's pretty snuggly. That thing's fairly affectionate, huh?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. She wants to go. She wants her bottle. She wants the bottle back.
Well, do you want to take us on a tour of your snakes? Do you want to start with hots and go to your other? I mean, you've shown on your content, you've got a freaking zoo of animals. And once I started digging into your profile and doing promos, I was super impressed. I mean, just everything: land crabs, sugar gliders. I mean, all kinds of lizards, and just all kinds of stuff. Do you still have that big of a collection of various pets?
Oh yeah. Well, I'll bring out a couple of that right now. I'm going to pass off the wallaby. Let her go upstairs, and we'll get out a couple of other critters. So
goodbye, Marilyn Monroo.
Dude, run with it. Do how you want to do it, right?
Yeah, man. This is like running your show. We'll have questions for you.
Run how you run your show.
Just a second here. Let me get some hand sanitizer real quick so they don't smell some Marilyn Monroo, and we'll be good to go.
Right.
Good idea. Good idea.
And thanks to everybody for the follows. I sure appreciate it. I didn't want to be rude and interrupt the conversation, but I just noticed I am seeing it on the bottom. So I didn't stop every time, and I'm sorry, but I do appreciate the new follows, guys, and all the awesome gifts. It's the spooky season, so we got pumpkins and little fun things up there for gift goals. So I do appreciate you guys and your contributions. Thank you for the follows.
You guys keep smashing that screen. Pick everybody up, right? Let's help this community grow. Help share this live, right?
We're gonna let Jake run this thing tonight.
Let's keep the reptile thing the thing.
We're gonna run this as his show. We're gonna feed questions to him, so he won't be reading the comments, guys. We wanted to have so he's not just doing his own live, maybe a little more freedom. He could share with us more, and we'll relay questions to him. And of course, we have our own. So don't feel like you're being ignored. Enjoy the view, and hopefully, we're all here to learn. And we'll just let him run his show. We like to have every guest come on, do their thing the way they like to. So this is a new thing for us, Dread. So let him run, right, baby? Let him cook.
Run with it, guys. Let's have fun. Welcome, Naughties. Welcome, guys, to Naughty Business. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Ask any questions as need be. I always figure start out with the most basic. This is what whenever somebody wants to be a venomous keeper, this is exactly what they're going to ask for is the Gaboon Viper. Everybody thinks this is the best venomous starter out there. I strongly disagree. These guys are an African species, and 99% of the time, this is what you're going to be dealing with. Them not moving, right? And they think that's an easy venomous snake. I can show my friends. They get to an impressive size, but they have absolutely lightning fast strikes. You're not going to get out of the way of it, and you can't really tell too much. They don't really give a whole lot of warning. It takes a lot to piss them off. It really takes a lot to get them going. There's even cases of people stepping on them and they don't strike. So, but when they do want to strike, they're going to nail you. And a lot, even those bite-proof gloves and stuff, it's not going to stop 2-inch fangs. So I really recommend not starting out with one of these guys. But we do have a lot of cool ones that do make great starters. Personally, I think the Mexican jumping viper makes some of the best starters. Let's see.
Okay.
See, the adjective jumping sounds like the adjective spitting, and both sound really intense.
We can. Let me get out the jumping viper. That might be a little bit better one to show. I don't really show the jumping viper because they are really placid. What did I do? There she is. I set out a whole bunch of stuff before the live began, so everything's a little out of place for me. Let me get
Jamie, if one starts chasing you, run.
In a zigzag?
Run, climb a tree.
There we go.
I guess it depends on what type of venomous snake is chasing you, how you want to respond.
They're not going to be too much in the business of chasing, but here's one that I do like to show off. This is the Mexican jumping viper. These are ones you don't see too often. I don't think I've seen any wild caught ones in the U.S. I do know a couple of people that work with them, and it's in a tote for a reason. This is the only one that I do keep in a tote as of its own enclosure because they do stress out relatively easy. So that's one of the downsides of these guys. The bright side are they are super slow growing. They come in a lot of cool different colors. They usually will eat for you. I'd say about 80% of the time. And even if you get tagged by this species, it's not likely to be a death sentence. Worst case is anaphylactic shock. As long as you're not allergic to that venom, you're just looking at a bad day or two.
Huh.
So I like to. Really should show her off more because this is where I think everybody should start. Copperheads are another great one, which we do have here. But these guys, I don't know, they're, like I said, a little bit more expensive, but a whole lot easier to work with, and they will live for a very long time. My mentor's got one from 1999, another one from 2002. So, he still keeps them in totes. Like I said, enclosures will not do best. So if you're looking for a venomous snake that you want to display, I really wouldn't recommend these guys. But as far as working with them goes, we talk about, how long things should take. And I would say cobra should take maybe a year. Gaboon vipers, at least a few months of working with them till you're super comfortable with the adults. I could teach you everything you need to know in 25 minutes about these guys. They really are the easiest venomous snake to work with. And even when we talk about things behind glass, this is not behind glass right now. It's just the lid's off. It's just vibing. This is what you're going to deal with. But they can spring at you. So I think these are really cool little critters. And this is almost let's see, how old is this one? This is going on about 2-ish years old. So still very small. I still use my smallest hook for her. Like I said, they will grow incredibly slow, even though they will eat almost every time. And yeah, Will's right. It depends on the subspecies
special prey items, or are they all pretty much rodent?
It's going to be rodent. It's going to be a rodent diet for these little ones. So, and they take frozen thawed pretty easy. I've never really had an issue switching them between live and frozen thawed. My mentor, I haven't seen him really struggle with it either. African soft furs, mice, whatever the case is, they'll pretty much go for it. And the bright side is they don't really have it. They have a pretty low failure to thrive rate. So, sometimes when you have like the big litters like Gaboon vipers, that can drop a shit ton of babies, you're going to lose quite a few. You lose a couple of them. Chlorecus too, sometimes the same case. These guys don't really have a failure to thrive. This actually was the only one that was expected to be a failure to thrive, and it ended up making it. So it came out with like a popped out eye, and it's totally fine now. It doesn't have that popped out eye anymore.
Huh. A little glass prosthetic eye in place, tinted just right.
Yeah.
So litters and eggs. Now that's something I've only kind of picked up from watching a few different venomous keepers. Is there a species delineation so to me, I'm like boas and pythons, live birth and eggs. So the fact that these different, other species that honestly I'm not well versed in. So tell people about that. I mean, it kind of blew someone's mind when I shared that with them today, and I go, yeah, I don't know anything about it either. So I wanted to hear it from you. Live birth versus egg. Where is it? Old world, new world, or what?
I don't know if old world, new world's the way for it. I could be wrong on that, but vipers, for the most part, they're going to be live birth. That we see on your screen, the chlorecus, your rattlesnakes, live birth. That's why I always got a kick out. If you ever seen those rattlesnake eggs for sale at a gas station or a little gag store, no such thing. They're live birth. Cobras are going to lay eggs. So yeah, vipers. That's pretty much what you're going to be dealing with is that live birth from them. I'm trying to think what other hots will do eggs. Mambas, another great one. So. But yeah, a lot of the stuff you're going to see as far as like commonly sold, the vipers are going to be the live. Puff adders, rhino vipers, all that good stuff you see. I don't know if there's any kind of delineation between that as far as like old world, new world. I don't know if it's like tarantulas. I don't know much about tarantulas.
So it's more species.
Yeah. I really wish I did know more about them. I want to educate myself on them. I'm just terrified of tarantulas. I'll work with venomous snakes and big snakes all day long. Spiders scare the hell out of me.
That's not the first time I've heard that from a snake guy. It's funny. I'm not into. I mean, I like them; they're wonderful to look at. But I don't know that I would have It's they don't scare me. It's that I just don't know if I would be able to keep one alive long term. Honestly, I don't know if have enough attention to detail for their little environment. So I don't know. I could be wrong.
I've seen them move. I got a couple of buddies that are into them, and they take off, and I take off too. I couldn't even be in the same room as one when it's out. They just freak me out.
Of all the animals you have, there it is, the one you won't keep. That we found
Yeah,
it.
spiders scare me.
You heard it here on Naughty Business.
Hey, you get a lot of that from everybody. No spiders, you got those few that are, and then there's a lot of them. No. I can deal with tarantulas, but those little spiders, no.
Oh yeah, he's right. Bushmasters, desert horn vipers, they lay eggs as well. Yep, you got it, Joey. So I don't keep any of those. All the vipers that I keep are going to be live birth stuff.
What about breeding programs? I don't hear a lot. Is there a robust breeding community, or am I just not plugged in, or do you have?
So personally, I don't breed. I just like to collect. I have a few species I just like to have with me. Nothing super crazy, but I mean, as far as breeding programs go, like with monocle cobras, Miguel Jolliffe is the guy for that. I've gotten a lot of my good stuff from him. I think even my rhino viper, one of my gaboon vipers came from him. So I really like the breeding programs he's got. A lot of time with the venomous community, you will see some low quality animals. So it's always really important to try to figure out who's breeding what, who's got the quality stuff, so you're not getting the wild caught. When I first got into it, I got burned. Wild caught gaboon vipers. People said, "Oh yeah, they're captive bred." I never really asked the questions. It's not like ball pythons. If you go to a show, you're not really going to ask, "Is this ball python wild caught, captive bred?" Not something you're going to have to worry about. Same with boas for the most part. With the venomous, you kind of do. You can drag a parasite into your collection, and it's going to be game over.
Do you do any prophylactic treatment on the way in? Flagyl, any kind of mite soaks, any kind of antibiotics, deworming? Is there anything you do besides quarantine, kind of across the categorically for them?
So with quarantine, if I know it's wild caught, it's going to be separated for roughly 6-ish months. Is my personal thing. Panicure treatments for any possible parasites. Although I've never really had that big any issue with that. All the wild caught stuff I've got just happened to be gaboon vipers. They just didn't last, and that's a big thing with them too. Let me close this one up here real quick. Gaboon vipers being one of the most common species out there in the venomous hobby, a lot of them are wild caught, or at least CB versus CBB. They were born possibly overseas. They just weren't kept in the best environment. So, you really want to be sure where you got them from, and always try to stick to those CBB stuff right here in the U.S. If somebody's saying they have it, try to get as much proof or pictures as possible if they're not really well known. I don't know too many people that are still breeding gaboons. Some people, like I said, they used to be super common, have definitely gone up in price. I mean, now you see them at I think 175 is like CBB rate for these guys. Yeah, we'll say cheaper to import than to breed them, unfortunately.
Wow.
That's shockingly affordable.
Yeah,
that's what a lot of these importers. That's kind of how they. It's a lot easier for them to make the sale. It's more about the money than it is the animal. It's a whole lot easier to bring in 1,500 wild-caught gaboon vipers and hope that 10 of them live versus taking the time, raising one of these guys up, breeding them, and getting those babies established. So you really got to be careful. Like I said, I've been burned before. I didn't do my research. It was quite a long time ago, but it definitely can't happen. So, I try to get the CBB stuff if you can. Wild caught isn't necessarily a problem. I'm not saying don't go wild caught, but I'm saying if you do, make sure you have those quarantine procedures. Make sure you've got Panicure ready. Make sure you're prepared to deal with all the downsides to it. Of course, you're going to pay a lot less for wild caught, but is it kind of worth it? That's something for you to decide.
If captive born and bred is 175, I don't know how much less it needs to be. I'm ashamed of myself right now, knowing what I paid for some ball pythons I'm trying to get rid of at this point. I'm like, $175. I bought that at 2:00 in the morning, stone sober, sitting up at night, accidentally on Morph Market. Shit.
Yeah, I mean, wild caught gaboon viper babies. I think they had a special at one of the shows I went to, 2 for $80.
Oh my gosh, with the corgis.
There's the corgis. Woo.
That is wild. Okay,
So you're keeping all these. You can barely see that animal in that bark right there, the camouflage. Yeah. But right quick for any newcomers, be mindful of what regulations you have to follow in the state you live in to own some of these animals, guys.
That's a big one.
Do your research and be mindful if there are any regulations or permits you have to have.
Yep, that's a huge one right there too. I'm glad you brought that up. If you're in an area like Florida, I hate to be a negative Nancy, but your dreams of being a venomous keeper probably aren't going to happen unless you kind of know somebody or you have some kind of hookup. It's just not likely. It's very hard to obtain, lots of different permits and stuff. Not saying it's impossible. It's just going to be really hard to do. And even if you're in a state that allows it, your city or your county might not. So, I know Nebraska is one of them. I know an individual that kind of got burned there. He got his permit for Nebraska, but Omaha didn't honor that permit. So luckily he didn't have a massive collection, but the 2 animals he did own were taken from him and he got cited. So, and he had the permit for his state. He thought he was good. He just didn't look into those local laws, and that's where he got burned on.
Yes,
yep.
Get into your local laws. Yes, there you go.
That's part of the reason why people were so upset with the Dallas NARBC, because it moved from Arlington, and Dallas County has terrible set of regulations where the rest of Texas doesn't. And another example, New York City, by the way, where I'm going in early December, is in the 5 boroughs in downtown. You can't keep ball pythons or anything bigger. They're not allowed. But the state of New York, they are. And like White Plains is right up there on Long Island. That's why it's just outside of town, a.k.a. Arlington to Dallas used to be. So they get around those inner city or inner county regulations by hosting good shows just outside the parameter, but still drawing the crowd. But yeah, you guys are dead on the money with knowing your laws. It is kind of tough, and even some of the laws sometimes are kind of vague. Here in Arkansas, they say things are restricted, but then some things are permitted or regulated, and some things aren't. But they don't really even have a good knowledge base on the damn list they made. So it's like, what are you doing? Like it's all so much gray area. It gets tough.
Yeah, I mean, look, wallaby for example, right? Perfectly legal in my state, not a problem. But there are a couple of counties way up north where they're not allowed. So you have to be super specific. I had to call the DNR. That's the biggest thing right there. If you have any questions, I would say start with your state DNR first. Ask them. If it's a no, just drop it there. If they say yes, then call your city or your county or municipal, however your state is structured, and then see if you're able to do it from there. But always ask the question, hey, I'm in Kentucky. Can I keep it? Okay, I can. Okay, well, what about this city? And then just double check again, just so you're sure. If you can get it in writing, even better. That's honestly the best way to go about it. So, and if you can, I don't really have that. And unfortunately, they just kind of sent me the restricted species list. But if you can get it in writing from somebody official, just to cover yourself, always do so. You can never be too safe with these when it comes from handling the laws, right? When it comes to locks on the enclosure, to never free handling, to even just the legality of keeping them, paperwork, safety, emails, all that stuff. Keep a paper trail. You don't ever want to get hemmed up because, they'll take your collection, and even if you win, you might not get your stuff back. And if you do, it might have died in their care or something else. So it's really sad.
Wow.
Okay.
Hey, how do you administer your panic cure? Question somebody asked here.
So the only time I've ever administered panic cure was to a gaboon viper. What you do is I put a little bit and dilute it in some water, and I put them in the water, and while they're kind of soaking, they'll drink it. That's one of the best ways to go about it. Then when they do go to the bathroom, they'll just blast out whatever parasites they got. It's disgusting. If you think snake shit is bad, it's real nasty when they do the panic cure, expelling those parasites.
Any
So
trouble
like Will said, there's charts online that you can find depending on the size, the species. Obviously, you're going to use a lot more for a retic than you would a baby gaboon viper. So, it just depends what you're doing. And one of the best advice that I've got that I haven't followed myself as far as panic cure goes that I would like to start doing is even your CBB stuff. It's not a bad idea to treat them with panic cure if you can. Because the stuff that they eat is gross. What do my snakes eat? Guinea pigs, rats, mice, roosters, things from a farm. So, and it might not bother them too much, but it's not bad to get it out of their body for their health. Yeah,
so
blast.
how do you know you had an effective dosage level? If it's weight based, right? You're putting it in a solution.
Weight
inject
based.
feeders, so you're more in control of the dosage they're getting. How do you know if your efforts were successful or not? Is it simply by, as Ashley pointed out, blasting it out? Or what else? What's another sign that you were successful?
That's kind of it right there. So I just kind of watch them. I usually do it one at a time. I've only ever done to do it for one snake. that I got. But just kind of watch them. If they start drinking, you'll kind of it's going in their body, and you'll be able to tell the difference. You know what a healthy snake waste looks like versus a not so healthy one, and you'll definitely be able to smell the difference too, from what I've seen. And it worked. It's actually Thickums right here. He's doing well. I take a lot more precautions with the Bitis. I've noticed, at least in my experience, like anything in your Bitis family, the rhinos, the puff adders, the gaboons, when they come in, you really do want to treat them because they just seem to carry more. They still seem to last as long if they're wild caught. So I'm a little more safe when it comes to that stuff now. The other stuff I had for a while, but Thickums is doing great. I've had him for close to a year now, and he's doing wonderful. So if I ever was to get more Bitis, that's what I'd do, unless it came from somebody that I knew very well. If it came from one of my mentors' houses, he's had it for years. I know technically you're supposed to quarantine, but realistically, if I, house to house, I know what he's got. I know his stuff isn't sick. That's just what I personally would do. But you always try to quarantine, even if it's CBB. You never know if you get burned. Like I said, I've been told things were captive born and bred in the past, and they weren't. So luckily we did the quarantine. Nothing else passed away in the collection.
What makes you think gaboons are so popular? To me, I love their ornate pattern. It looks like a fine Indian silk from 1,000 years ago. They look like tapestry to me. Is that what draws people in? Is it a big buff colored head, or why is it so popular, you think?
The way that they move is super unique. That's one thing about it. They don't move like a normal snake. When you look at a python or something else, they're going to kind of slither. And I think it's the movement that freaks people out. So when them kind of crawl like a caterpillar, it's cute. We as people, we like fat animals. We like fat cats. We like fat dogs. We like guinea pigs. So the gaboon vipers, they kind of have that chunky body, which makes people like them. And the biggest misconception is that they're slow moving. They're not too bright. They're very slow moving. So people think that they're, plastic. Except for the most part, they are. They just don't want to, that 1% of the time where they're not freaking out.
They're just an elite predator. They know how to use their calories wisely. That's what it is.
Yes, they'll stay still for a very long time. Even the one right here, he doesn't move from this spot. He's looking at it. I don't know if you can tell on camera. His tongue's flicking away. He knows it's feeding time, but he's not going to be out and about. My cobras, when they're hungry, they're going to be out. They're going to be doing circles around their enclosure. They're going to be poking at the doors, poking at the lid. They're going to be trying to do whatever they can to find that food. These guys are going to be very, very patient for it, but they're going to strike it with a whole lot of force. They're not going to wait. Cobras, sometimes you got to tease them a little bit. They'll do a couple of fake strikes, and then they'll get it. Not the gaboon. It's like lightning. You open that door, and it's gone. It's incredible.
Very cool. So what about the gaboon viper and rhino viper hybrid? I see that's kind of gotten, has it always been popular? Are you team yes or team no on that? Or is it just a look? Why is that a thing?
Rhino vipers are stunning. Gaboon vipers are stunning, and gabinos are top tier. It's just kind of cool to say you have a hybrid. I think they're amazing. Do I want one personally? No. I think that they're really cool in other people's collections. I kind of am more of a purist. At first, I did get the gaboons and the rhinos because I did want to make those hybrids, but I just kind of decided against it. When it comes to breeding, right? Breeding is conservation. If you produce enough captive-born gaboon vipers, you don't have to take more out of the wild. That's with any species, right? We import a lot of gaboons out of there. So I just kind of want to stick to the more pure stuff personally. As far as they go, they are beautiful, but they don't all turn out that way. Some of them can be very, very dull in color. So if you breed an animal like that, right, and they have kind of a hefty price tag, of course you got to be your own best customer. That's with anything. So you're going to want to keep your prettiest ones back. And if you're going to buy an animal like that, of course, you're going to want the higher end ones. So it could be a little bit difficult to find those top quality ones unless you're producing them.
Thanks, Montrose. Thanks for the gifts. Appreciate you guys.
I think at all the expos I've been to, I've only seen one gabino around. It wasn't. I'm not talking too much credit. It just didn't seem to be the prettiest gabino, and they wanted $1,500 for it. And it kind of looked like a slightly, I don't know, it was almost like a washed out rhino viper. If you've seen my big Ugandan line rhino, she's not the prettiest compared to the Congo line rhino, but it kind of looked like that, just a little bit different. So I was like, damn, if you're going to spend $1,500, you could get a really pretty animal for that.
Absolutely. That's a bunch.
Let's see, who else? I can drag out a cobra here too in just a second. I just got to move some stuff around. If you just bear with me for a moment, I'll do that. It's in its hide. I just got to kind of focus on it. Give me just a moment.
You're all right. You're all right. Do your thing. I was looking for a wallaby in the gift gallery, but I don't see one. I was trying. They got all kinds of stuff, but I was hoping for a wallaby. No such luck. We'll keep our Halloween theme going, Dredd. So, Dredd, how has your day been? You been busy, sir?
Very busy. Very busy.
Dang, Mothers, thank you, sir.
I had all my therapy, this physical therapy and all that this morning. So, but other than that, yeah, busy trying to tear the snake room apart and redo it.
All right, y'all. Appreciate you bearing with me.
I put a pair of ball pythons back together tonight. It's their 4th introduction. She's getting huge. We got a weather front coming in. I think she may be gravid, but in case she's just I'm building follicles. I put them together tonight. We're getting a big drop.
Ooh, look at that.
There we go. Look at that.
There we go, guys.
Had to flip over the water dish. He wanted to go underneath that. Might have to take that out for him. That's what you gotta love about cobras, man. Their personalities are all over the place.
Cobra time.
Oh, let me get those tongs out. He's gonna want to shield himself behind that. He's a funny cobra.
So, do these cobras? What is it? They spit? Is that just certain
this is
ones?
not one of the spitting cobras that we have. Monocle cobras are one of the I think the most common cobra in the pet trade. That's what you're going to see the most of. When somebody says they own a cobra, it's likely going to be some type of monocle. I think the leucistics are probably the most popular. I have a leucistic myself. That was actually my first monocle cobra. I love them. They're incredible.
Good stuff. How come you don't see more spectacled?
I'm not really sure. I think it's just because the morphs with these guys. I have some snakes in the background too. Disregard all those tubs. A couple of non-venomous things to show after this. But these guys, I don't know. You see a whole bunch of them out there. All kinds of morphs. If you like darker snakes, if you like white snakes, if you like the albino ones, a little bit of mixture. There's something for you with them. I think that's why they're so popular. They also don't get to a super large size. Not everybody can deal with a king cobra. I can't deal with a king cobra. I don't have that kind of experience. But a 4 or 5 foot cobra is a lot more reasonable than like an 18-foot one. A forest cobra is another one. That's a really large cobra. It's just not a lot of people are ready for. All big puppies.
Yeah, I understand forest cobras are very challenging, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, some people have said they'll actually chase you in the wild. Is that one species that holds true for, or is that made up?
I would definitely believe that they would at least come after you. In a way, I hate to say snakes chase people, but they do a little more than stand their ground.
I've heard that of forests. Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, forests. Black mambas are another one. There are some species out there. Now, when I'm on my lives, I say snakes don't chase people, and 99% of the time that's true. You weren't chased by a cottonmouth. You weren't chased by a ball python. But go ahead and find a really angry black mamba or a really angry forest cobra, and it might be a little different.
Yeah. I'll pass.
Yeah, me too. I love working with venomous snakes, but there's just some out there that are beyond my ability to keep. And I totally understand that.
Well, I think that's the intelligent way to go about HOTS, isn't it? Like, you know your limitations and know what you're capable of. I mean, it's not the same thing, but it comes down to how big should your ball python collection be before you're so belly up you'll never make it out. Or you live in a 2-room apartment. Should you own a retic? Check yes here. Like, it's just... sometimes you have to realize your limitations no matter how much you may want something. And so I think that's respectable to be aware of what you should and shouldn't have for your own safety, for the animal's well-being, and all points above,
Exactly. And there's some people out there that, it stresses them out having a sand boa. I had an individual ask she wanted me to babysit her sand boa while she took a mental break because it was just too much for her to deal with. And that's, I deal with a couple hundred snakes here. So it's just, everybody has their own limits. And there's people that have 1,500, 2,000 snakes, and they can still do that. I don't think I can handle 1,500 to 2,000 snakes on my own. I'm kind of happy with the amount that I've got right now. That's a perfect number for me. Some go, some come in, a little bit of trading and stuff, but everybody has their own set limit on what they can deal with. They're definitely not pets for everybody. It's kind of hard to explain. Like they're my pets, but I don't recommend these for 99% of people.
Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned morphs, and someone asked, "Is this a leucistic, or what is the morph on this cobra?"
So, to be honest with you, this is the only one in my collection. I'm not 100% sure what it is. It was sold to me as a T-negative, T-positive pastel. And that it was somebody who didn't actually really breed them. He just kind of had them secondhand. Everything else I have has come from Miguel Jolliffe, so I know exactly what it is. But if that morph was correct, just to give you an idea of one that's kind of napping right now, this is that morph right there. So you can see a lot more orange on it. It's kind of out in the front, vibing out. I've got a second one over here. Same thing, right? Very orange, very almost like peach-colored patterns. That's not going to be the same as this guy. So I don't really know what that extra genetic is or what's going on with him. He's also a lot spicier too. He's definitely my more defensive cobra. So I'm just going to have to go with what's written on his card for now, and if I find somebody that kind of has a cobra that looks similar, I guess we'll go with that. But I haven't seen too many monocles that look identical to him. Not that I've been able to find online, at least.
So what are their say their humidity and heat, their husbandry requirements for a monocle for that particular one right there?
So as far as husbandry goes, I mean, this will be a 4 to 5 foot snake. So plan on an enclosure at least about 3 to 4-ish feet minimum. Some people keep them in racks. I don't have a problem with it personally. I just like to keep my cobras out where I can see them. So I do know a lot of breeders will keep these guys in racks. They'll thrive. I like to just be able to see my venomous stuff. I use racks for like ball pythons, corn snakes, things like that. As far as heating goes for them, I keep mine in the upper 80s. And as far as humidity goes, I usually spray them down about once a day. They are in glass enclosures, so keeping humidity up can be a little, I won't say a challenge. I use a couple screen tops for some of the babies. But about once a day, I'll just spray them down, and it keeps them pretty well hydrated there. I don't have any humidity gauges or anything like that. I just kind of know if they're getting full sheds, I'm good to go. So I don't really have an issue getting nice full sheds out of these guys either. Monocle cobras are incredibly easy to keep and incredibly easy to breed. If you can breed corn snakes, you can breed monocle cobras.
Interesting.
Wow. Okay.
Let's see if I'll stop it. I'm trying to get him to turn around so I can get the hood on his back. He's just not happy.
He ain't gonna let that happen, I don't think, at this point.
Maybe he'll turn around. I love showing the back of the hood. God, that's another funny thing too. So I use him a lot because he is a little bit more on the defensive side. He's one of 5 that I have in my collection, and my other ones, they'll hood at me for maybe 30 seconds tops. I mean, that's a bad day. And they'll go back to just looking like corn snakes. He'll stay hooded at me the whole time I'm in the room. Even when I have his hide, I took out all of his decorations and stuff in there. But even when he has all that in there, he'd much rather hood up at me than go hide. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. When it comes to monocle cobras, there's a lot of different personalities. I think these are the second smartest snake out there. You don't want one that runs away from you. You don't, because if it runs away, it's going to kind of turn back on you. That was some of the best advice that I had. But you also don't want one that's super crazy, beating at the glass. And that's kind of how he is. He's not smacking the glass. He just kind of stands his ground. He eats just fine. So you really want one right in the middle with their personality. That's going to be the easiest for you to handle. Not too afraid of you, but not wants to run, but also not too crazy wanting to come at you. Deal TNA cobras.
I want to know. She said she's fallen in love with 2 snakes that she shouldn't have. I knew that would happen because she keeps hanging out with all the snake rooms, and I knew eventually, actually, what something was going to click. And I don't think I've seen her answer, but I want to know what those 2 were. At least a species, but I think she's holding out on us.
I think so too. Everybody needs a wallaby in their life, that's for sure.
Now I know 2 people with wallabies. Like. This is insane. This is amazing. I can't imagine it.
So I said I'm not a wallaby expert by now. I know enough to keep it around, but there's I know enough to keep them alive, all that good stuff. But they're really incredible to work with. They feel like chinchillas. They don't shed a whole bunch. I don't know, I'd like to see more people with them. I think they're really cool animals.
Wow. You make me want to trade my pug in. My pug sheds nonstop, so you won me with that.
Hey, I feel you. I used to love pugs when I was a kid. My buddy ended up getting one. I was super jealous of him, and after spending the night at his house, I wasn't jealous of him anymore.
It's probably the best behaved dog I've ever had, honestly. It just my daughter wanted it. We got it on a super deal. Some family couldn't handle it, and they had other dogs and 4 kids, and so we got her at 6 months old, and she's great. Probably the best dog I ever had. But God, the shedding! Oh my God!
Yeah, the dog goes like that needle-like fur gets my allergies going every time.
TNA said leucistic monocle cobra and Insularis. Insularis, I love them.
Insularis are cool. I like bush vipers personally. Both of mine are still going through a shed right now, but I'll always personally like bush vipers over Insularis.
There we got the back of the hood for a moment there, Jake.
That was for a moment. I scratched my face real quick, and he wasn't having any of that. So these guys, I mean, the attention to detail they have. You move your finger, you do anything they don't like, and they're ready to rock. It's just so amazing. Their sight, their reaction time. It's super neat. I like him. I think he's going to grow up to be an absolutely stunning cobra. I can't wait to see what he looks like as an adult. I really hope he keeps that. I'll stop it. I'm trying to film you. I hope he keeps that like a granite-ish pattern to him. So beautiful.
Yeah, that was so cool. The back of that hood, when it's up, is amazing.
It is. They're so beautiful. And Naja siamensis, Indonesian spitting cobra. It's another one I have going through shed right now. I'll move it out for just a second to show you guys, but that's actually my favorite spitter. Give me just a second here, and I will bring
You didn't tell them about the show schedule, man, and get their shed in order so they could show off?
I know, right? A lot of them go through shed, but it's also on the same feeding cycle too, so it kind of happens that way. You get a whole bunch of them that'll go through shed. I've got like one of my monocles, my Indo-Chinese, a couple of non-venomous things, and my bush vipers, and one rattlesnake, all in shed at the same time right now. So let's see. Let me get a small hook. I got to get all my safety gear, my eyeglasses, respirator, all that good stuff on.
Oh yeah,
I see you have your goggles right there laying down. So
respirator,
I keep a few goggles, a few different things in here, just in case.
And a respirator, guys, and a respirator. So this is serious business.
So even if you have a cut in your mouth, if you bit your tongue, you bit your lip, maybe you've got some bad oral hygiene, your gums are bleeding. If this gets in your mouth, aside from tasting really, really bad, it can still get into your bloodstream and be an envenomation. So working with them, I can't stress safety enough with these guys. Even though mine is actually really sweet and allows me to work with her pretty well. So give me just a second here and I'll get her out. Let's see if she wants to behave for me today. Usually she does. Her name is Cookie. And the fact that she's in shed might be a little easier to work with her just because of that. There we go. Nice. Perfect. She actually rides a hook. So I can't say that for the whole species that's how they're going to be. But for her, I really lucked out. There we go. Still a little bit in shed there, but these are incredible. Naja siamensis are by far becoming one of my favorite cobras to work with aside from monocles. They're just so beautiful.
Dude, what a different pattern. That is so different from cobras I usually see. That's a very different pattern. Wow.
And not quite as defensive. She doesn't have the hood all the way out. It doesn't open up quite as much as a monocles. It does have a little bit of a white design in there. But yeah, I mean, they're just so freaking gorgeous. And I guess they will get a little bit bigger. I think my buddy's got one that's closer to 6-ish feet. So pros and cons to these guys compared to monocles. Obviously, there's not as many morphs. What you see is what you get with these guys. But the bright side is their venom is not quite as potent. Obviously, they spit, so monocle cobras don't. But you're a lot more likely to survive a bite from a baby one of these guys than you would a baby monocle. Still a lethal snake. This could still unalive you. I'm not downplaying that in the slightest. Just the toxicity is not as strong as the monocle. So pros and cons to each species. And at least from my experience, I've been able to work with babies and adults with these guys, and I've never really had a problem working with them. They tend to be a little bit calmer. They don't really spray. This one's only sprayed me once. And that was
Really?
I was actually in the middle of a live, and it was totally my fault. I didn't realize it was right at the door. It had like buried itself under here, and I popped out and startled it. So that was the only time it's ever sprayed me. Other than that, total angel. So, but see, that's why. Until then, I always told people it never did.
Isn't it about 6 foot or so, 8 foot on their spit?
I can go. So as adults, it can go a lot farther than that. It could probably go right around 20-ish. But at this size, 6 to 8 feet. They can spray that a pretty good distance. So that's another thing people don't realize, and I never realized it myself. One of my mentors had wrinkles, and I was standing well across his snake room. His snake room is probably triple the size of my venomous room. I've got a venomous room and a big constrictor room. And we wanted me to wear all the safety glasses. Like, well, I'm kind of far away. I mean, is it going to get me? It absolutely can. They'll spray that thing like a water gun. So it's super interesting. I'd probably never keep a wrinkles. I kind of like the Indo-Chinese. I wouldn't mind getting a male. This is probably the only spitter that I really enjoy besides the red spitting cobras, the Naja Politas.
This is coming across kind of peachy pink. Does it look peachy pink to you, Dred?
It's in shed. It's in shed.
Yeah, probably because the shed, But still, gorgeous animal nonetheless. That is just crazy. I like that one right there.
I've never seen that in a book, Jake. That's rad. I have not seen, and again, I'm not super knowledgeable on venomous, so that's why we have experts on. Dred and I know just enough to go, oh, look, it's a snake, and then we stop at the door and let our guests tell us and be the experts. So I've not seen that.
We know that's a snake of some sort, cobra or whatever. Don't fool with it. Let's learn about it.
That's awesome.
That works. And that's another one I'm surprised at, too. The cost of these guys is very low. You can find a captive-born one at a show for right around $300-ish bucks. Some maybe even cheaper. So, that's another pro, too. If you want a lighter-colored cobra, your albinos are going to run in the $400 to $500-ish range. The leucistics can run between $800 to $1,100. So these guys are a whole lot cheaper, too. Oh, it's kind of giving me a little hood now. So, pros and cons to everything. So let's see. Might be able to have another cobra too. This is another really interesting cobra that I haven't brought out too often. This is just a T positive, T negative I got off of Miguel Jolliffe a while ago. And she's still a baby. Her name is Arbok. Don't need all the safety gear with her. She's probably right under this hide right here. Let's see. There we go. Oh, wow, another one in shed. Yeah, that's what happens when they're all on the same schedule. Come here, Mama. Come here.
Man.
There we go.
That monocle in the back is beautiful.
Thank you. Awesome. I love this. Everything's going through a shed. Everything's going to look so beautiful. I'm happy about it. But yeah, she's looking great. She was a whole lot more purple, and now she's starting to get a little bit more orangish color to her. So really cool breeder. I've got a couple of different plans with her. I would like to pair her off to my leucistic, but she's a super beautiful animal. And she really, despite being in shed, she's a little more defensive now, but she's usually pretty sweet to work with.
How long does shed last? Just pretty normal week in blue.
For cobras, 4 or 5 days. I mean, that's the thing. They have very fast metabolism. So, I mean, I've had mentors tell me feed their baby cobras every 3 days. I've had some say every 7. I do mine every 5. So, this is not a snake that you're going to have to worry about obesity. They're not like gaboon vipers or Burmese pythons or anything like that. So that's one of the pros with them. If you have an extra pinky that you thought out, maybe one of your baby ball pythons didn't want, no problem. They'll take it without issue. They're constantly in and out of shed as babies, and they grow at a pretty impressive rate. It takes about 3 years for them to be full grown.
That's fairly fast. Wow.
Yeah, and they'll become thicker snakes. My leucistic cobra that I have, he's almost doubled in size since I got him as a sub-adult. Now he's almost an adult, so he's a little bit on the slower side too. But he's looking great. There's just something about cobras, man. I just love them. I love all of them except for forest cobras. Terrified of forest cobras. So, and of course, if you can't deal, I always say this too, if you can't deal with a cobra, maybe you want to own one, but for legal reasons you can't because of wherever you live, or you just, the venom just freaks you out. I mean, you can always go with a false water cobra. They're great. So I like these guys a whole lot too. They still hood up at you. They still get to an impressive size. They'll never miss a meal. I think they're absolutely wonderful animals. So really cool.
Oh yeah, false waters are super cool.
So
there you go, guys. Get you a false water cobra. If you can't, you can probably have that. So That's definitely a good one to have.
And to my knowledge, I don't know if they back this up or not, but I don't think these are on the Florida venomous list anymore. I know there was a point in time where you couldn't have them, and I do believe now you can. So if you are in Florida, you're just dying to have a cobra, but you won't ever leave the state and getting that permit out of the question, you can at least go with one of these guys. They're not bad. So let's see if I can get a little bit better.
I got to see if I can have those out here. That'd be something good I could have probably.
Yeah, I love him. He used to be super defensive. A bite from these guys does not feel the best. But yeah, I like them. They'll get a whole lot bigger. But you're not gonna unalive getting bit by one of those. As long as you don't go into anaphylactic shock, you're good to go.
Right. If you don't have an allergy, correct.
Yep. So I mean, it's relatively safe. It's one of those like 1 in a million things. With my luck, it would be one of those, right? He's tagged me before. Luckily, it wasn't. And I actually got bit by a hognose snake for the first time the other day. So now I know I'm not allergic to hognose rear fangs. Thought that was kind of fun. I always told my friends if I ever get unalived by a hognose snake or a shed fang, just tell them I had a vicious battle with a king cobra. I need at least some badass story.
Right. Tell them something else happened.
I love the scales on the head of an adult king cobra. My gosh, there's that head. The head scales are just amazing on kings.
Oh, I know it.
They are. Oh, stop it. But yeah, the scales are incredible. I love them. I love how smooth. Can you stop for 2 seconds? My goodness. Anyway, I just love their attitudes too. The biggest thing about them is they're very personable snakes. That was rude. If you buy a Gaboon Viper, they're all going to be the exact same way for the most part. You buy a monocle cobra, you can get any kind of personality, and it's just so cool. Even some from the same clutch. I've got some that are, very calm, like the males. Those two that I showed you that are the T positive, T negatives. My male, he's only hooded up at me like twice. While the female is kind of funny. She'll hood up me for about 20, 30 seconds and then stop. So you can already see their little personalities forming.
Huh.
So which one? So what? Okay. What's the most venomous or the most potent of the venomous snakes that you have?
It's going to be the monocle cobra, hands down.
Monocle, okay.
But if I was, that's probably what's going to kill you the most. But puff adder venom too. I've got a beautiful puff adder, a couple of them. Their venom is pretty gnarly. I think it's probably the most painful bite of anything I've got.
Those are cool.
Yeah, I have a gravid puff adder right now, so that'll be my first time ever having venomous babies here. I know I don't typically breed too much, but it is kind of cool to be able to have some baby puffs. I'll be able to, trade them off to friends or be able to keep some myself.
That's super awesome.
So, yeah. Let me see.
Puff adder babies. Heck yeah, that's way cool for the win. Puff adder for the win, guys.
Another crazy cheap snake. Puff adder babies, I believe, when they're established, go for around $40. So, nothing super crazy there. I don't want to disturb her too much, but I'll try to go over the top of the enclosure, just get a little bit of footage there.
So you've kind of answered inadvertently why a lot of people aren't into captive born breeding.
Whoa, there we go.
There you go. Wow.
Yeah.
If that was in a pile of sticks, you'd never see it. Look at that.
You'd never see that. It'd be like that rattlesnake I stepped on that day. I didn't even see it, stepped right on it.
Leaf litter and twigs on top of that thing? My goodness.
Yeah. It's crazy the camouflage on these animals, how they just blend in.
See, now, another thing in the Bitis, right? If you want a Gaboon Viper that stays a whole lot smaller but is a whole lot meaner, get yourself a puff adder. They're never going to refuse food. They stay nice and thick. Y'all can kind of see that little bit of swelling there. We'll have babies relatively soon. And I usually do. I usually have this blacked out. I'll usually just leave the top open. I know you guys might want to see her for the live. So I have it out just a little bit, but you want to keep the stress down as much as possible. I'm not going to film her for too long, but she's still doing great. That little tiny roar that they do is pretty standard. They'll just kind of inflate themselves. I have some people ask, "Oh, is that a respiratory infection?" It's not. That's just what they do. They just inflate themselves.
They're huffing and puffing to say, "Leave me alone."
Yep, that's one of their defense mechanisms. Cobras will hood up, rattlesnakes rattle. These guys just try to look bigger than they are.
Thus the name Puff.
Yeah, the gopher snakes out here rattle like a rattlesnake. It's funny.
Exactly.
They'll throw that tail up.
Oh, let's see. Let me go back, sit with you for just a little bit.
Well, that's cool. It sounds like, in the venomous community, you guys are able to trade and people that are contemporaries that can handle, what you're doing and vice versa. So that's really cool that, you guys have the ability to like enhance your collection and say, hey, I've got these. And then they're like, well, hey, I got these. And you guys can swap because you don't want to necessarily, doesn't sound like there's a lot of money in it. But really, you're doing it for the love and the thrill. And so to encourage that amongst your people that are peers, that's really neat. And it's got to really build a strong bond to people that you respect and that they respect you because I feel like, and you also don't want to put those animals in people's hands that, like you said, shouldn't have them. 99% of people you wouldn't recommend own these. So that's also kind of narrows the pool of who you're willing to give animals to,
Exactly. I mean, there are some that go for money. I mean, if you breed some leucistic cobras together and you get 15 of them or whatever that go, I mean, at $1,000 a piece, you can make some good money off of that. But there are just a lot of species out there, especially the more common ones that don't go for a lot of money. Normal monocle cobras can easily run, right around that 300-ish range. So, a lot of the stuff can be dirt cheap. If you're not really too concerned on the morph. Of course, there are some super expensive ones out there. I'm not saying all venomous snakes are cheap, but a lot of the ones that people want to keep are going to be dirt cheap. Western Diamondbacks is another one. I think you can find those for about $30 to $40 at a show.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of interesting. It's very easy to do an impulse buy. If I could change one thing, they're almost dangerously cheap. If that makes kind of like iguanas.
That's
you
what
can
I'm
find
thinking.
iguanas for $15.
That's what I'm thinking. There's got to be some, an entry fee to weed out the people that are going to abuse them. We brought this up one time on a ball python hangout. We were talking about how many pages of normals on Morph Market, and they're $10. And so it came up, we won't go into it again, but it came up with that should be somehow bought in mass and then properly made into feeders and then distributed to people that need feeders of a reptilian type. And so it's like, what do you do then? And then they said cheap. Some people brought up a very valid point. And they were knowledgeable that really, really dirt cheap ball pythons are the most abused and neglected of the snakes because, I got it for $20. What do I care? And it kind of breeds a mentality that it's not worth a lot. That's why you kick your door on a Kia, but if you got a Benz, you baby it and park it in the garage. It kind of, it's a little skin in the game. And so that does worry me. If a snake is $40, well, shoot. I mean, I think this sounds dangerously low. That seems like it invites maybe some people that don't have the best intentions or knowledge.
Exactly. If you spend $1,000 on a snake, you're not going to neglect it, or it'd be pretty rare. You spend $20, it's just be a lot easier to forget about. That's what always tickles me when people say, "Oh, well, your Burmese pythons, people let them go." I'm like, people aren't spending $400 or $500 on an animal to just let it go. That we all know about the hurricane issue that happened there back in the '90s.
Andrew, in '92 was the start of that. Yeah.
You're always going to have your onesies and twosies that are crazy. That's with anything. Birds, snakes, dogs, cats, whatever it is. I mean, cats are the most invasive species out there. It's very unlikely for somebody to spend a decent amount of cash and just let it go. They're going to want their money back. They're not just going to set it free. You don't see a whole lot of English bulldogs in the shelter, but you see a whole lot of mixes and stuff, right?
You're right. Perfect illustration. Yes.
He's chill. He's starting to chill a little bit more with me. When I first got him, he was so defensive. I mean, he would stay hooded for hours. But we're making progress. Just exposure therapy with him. Just knowing that I'm not too bad. So we'll get there. We'll definitely get there.
How long do you see till they start to turn the corner? Is it like a month, a year, 3 years? Like is it different in each animal when you start to see them become more relaxed?
Honestly, with monocle cobras, it's going to take a while. Like I have a wild-caught Burmese python. I was able to get it chill very quickly. It took me just a couple months before it went from super defensive, striking all the time, to it can vibe out around my neck. This one, I don't know. It might never totally chill out 100%. I really don't know the answer to that, but at least we're seeing progress, and that's what matters. If it's if it's at a 10 out of 10 in anger one day, and we can bring it to an 8 out of 10, I'll consider that a win.
Right.
At least we're making that positive progress. Try not to antagonize, and really try not to use him too much for the lives either. This is the second time in a week I've used him, so I had to dial it back. This is what one of everybody's favorite cobras on here. I was like, ooh, maybe I'm using him a little too much for the lives. Maybe I need to dial it back with him, and maybe only use him 2 or 3 days a week instead of like 5 days a week. And that kind of helps too. Just not having him as exposed.
Dred, you got me for just a second. Give me just 1 second, Dred.
Yeah, run off. Do what you got to do. Yeah, guys, the way he stands up looking, that is scary. It's like, don't fool with me. I know that is such a gorgeous animal, though. I mean, the colors, the way their movement, and the way he follows you like that. I mean, that is just crazy. How alert that snake is on watching you.
They're stunning, and I love seeing people enter the venomous hobby. I want to see more venomous keepers doing it. Whenever you like something, I don't know if it's video games, trading cards, you want to be around people like that. That it's hard to find. I would say hard to find, but there's a lot of bad apples in there, and there's a lot of good people as well. Most people are good people, but I want to see more of that. I want to see more good keepers, more responsible keepers, less free handling, less keeping them in poor conditions. We all know what that one incident down there, in South Carolina, the conditions of his animals were very bad, and that's sad. I'm not saying you have to have a $6,000 setup for one monocle cobra, but don't keep them in 10-gallon enclosures as adults. With no heat. Right.
You guys do your research, do it right. We're seeing that's why you're doing this, right? You're out here promoting and educating and teaching. So if a new keeper wants to get into it, they're going to do it right and understand this is really what it takes, instead of just, I just got one and just threw him in something that he shouldn't be in and ignore him. You're giving them the details that they need to know and learn, and then it's on them to do all the research as well. I agree. I think there should be more people in the venomous. I'd like to have a few of them, but unfortunately, I can't. That's okay, I'm
in love with the Insularus.
I don't trust myself enough. I don't trust myself enough. I'll go out and herp and mess with the rattlesnakes out in the wild, but I don't think I need to keep venomous. Not me.
It's totally fair. They said they're not forever. I'd love to see them more. I guess normalized would be the right word, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to see these for sale at PetSmart.
Yeah, you got to know what your capabilities are before you get into this, right? You got to know what your true capabilities are before you mess with really any reptile or keep any reptile. That's
so he's so rude to me. Anyway, one of the biggest things I think is money takes over with some of the vendors. I know some people over time that just have a lot of babies, right? Like the puff adder, for example. Let's say you have 50, 60 babies. Okay, nobody wants to keep a ton of puff adders. So out of the 50, 60 they have that might get established, you sell 20 of them off, and you start getting desperate. So then you start not caring who you sell to. You start. That's kind of a dangerous thing. Whenever you're trying to sell these animals or rehome them, you want to make sure they're going to good homes and people that can legally and responsibly keep them. Don't just sell them off because you can't afford to feed them anymore. You want space for new projects, so that's something you have to plan on. If you are going to breed Gaboon vipers, how are you going to be able to house 100 Gaboon vipers till they're able to go? That's just one of those things you've got to consider.
I mean, that's even with any reptile, right? Don't impulse buy, right? Give it 48, 72 hours. Give it a week. What did Bob Busair, someone told us? He thought about it for 3 or 4 months, and if he was still excited about it after a couple of months, then okay, you continually to be excited about it, right? So give it some time before you make a decision, right? Just to, I like it and get it. I don't recommend that with any of them. Do your research. Be excited about it. Sleep on it for a few days, even a few weeks, and then, do what you got to do to get one.
Exactly. Even with Burms and retics, that's why I stopped breeding them. It's difficult when you have a whole bunch of baby Burms and retics going around. So I kind of stopped doing. I still have them. I still love them, but I just stopped the breeding process with them to focus more on education. It's easy to have an impulse buy. You see somebody like, and I'm not saying he's the best example, but like Jay on YouTube, right, with those morbidly obese retics, and you say, "Wow, I want a big snake. That's cool." Well, is it cool for 20 minutes, or is it going to be cool for the next 20 years? something you kind of got to decide when you're doing that. Are you gonna want to deal with it every day? Let's see what's a good one. An inland taipan, right? That's a cool, in my opinion, that's a cool snake for me to mess with at my buddy's house for an afternoon. Do I want to raise a taipan for the next 15 plus years? As of right now, the answer is no. I'd love to work with them, but I wouldn't want to have them in my house, having to work, take them out, change their bedding. That's just not for me at this time. So, whenever you have one of these guys, just think if it's going to be something you want. Is it going to be cool months and years from now? Are you going to want to deal with this all the time?
Right. Absolutely. Good advice. Very good advice.
There we go. Now looks like he's starting to chill just a tad. I see that hood going down. God, I love him.
Strictly, while we got a moment, we're an hour into the show, kicking ass, taking names. Guys, much love. Thanks for all the follows. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the gifts. Keep smashing that screen. Who's our next guest next week, Constrictly?
It's going to be next Wednesday. It's exceptionally exotic. Joanna and Alex, everyone's favorite fun-loving couple. They are not breeders. They are keepers extraordinaire. And they have, a ton of different animals, from spicy centipedes to tortoises and all things in between. They are a lot of fun. People love their content. Their videos get 1 million likes and shares. They're just goofy. They're themselves. They're very upfront. They're very honest. And they just love life. And so they're going to be a lot of fun to see a lot of different animals. And we're really going to be excited to see just how, why their content is so contagious. So it's going to be kind of cool and definitely keeping it in the vein of exotic pets and critters. So stand by for that next Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
Stay tuned. Next Wednesday, Naughty Business Live. We're looking forward to seeing y'all there. Come on, come on. All right, what do we have here?
This is Penny the Copperhead. And I always say this little disclaimer.
That looks like my favorite copperhead right there.
Just in case, so our state, we're only allowed to keep one native species. So I always say that little disclaimer so nobody gets think we're keeping multiple here. Penny's my only one. In my state where you're allowed to have one native, it has to be found on private property. So you can't find, I don't think you can find them on roadsides or anything anymore. Don't quote me on that, but you can't just go nab them from a state park. Penny was found on private property, so now she gets to live here as an educational animal. I love her. These are one of the coolest snakes. These are also great beginner venomous reptiles, too.
Dude, in these Texas, Louisiana, where I grew up, especially in these Texas, everywhere, man. Copperheads everywhere. My nephew's property's got them. He's covered in them down there. When I was little, crawling around, little top, ghetto dread crawling around. He's probably the cutest guy you ever seen. I seen this snake, and I'm thinking it's a worm. Oh, it's a worm, it's a worm. My mama comes out with the broom. Boy, smacks me out of the way with the broom. I'm about to grab that copperhead, and then mama, brushes him out of the way, and when I'm little. Yeah, I like the got had by a copperhead when I was a baby.
That's
I think
crazy.
because they're common, they don't get enough attention, but I think they're quietly some of the most beautiful, especially for North America.
Oh, they are. They're gorgeous.
They're really good striking to me. They're beautiful.
Oh,
I love her. She's, she adapted very well to captivity. That was one of my biggest fears too. When I got her, I was like, oh man, getting a wild caught animal, it could take some time to get used to. That's how it was with the bush vipers at first. Day one, I put a live mouse in there. She nailed it. I'm like, okay, so we established she can eat in captivity. Not bad. Let's try frozen thawed. And the next week, boom, frozen thawed, good to go. She established herself very well, and she's an absolutely amazing animal to work with. Another cool fact about these guys is their venom's being studied for breast cancer research. So, it's just kind of crazy to think something that could potentially take a life can also save a whole lot more. So you definitely want to keep these guys around. A lot of people just want to unalive them because they're in their property. Call somebody. There's snake relocation. There's free snake relocators all over Facebook, myself included. I've done relocations, and we definitely don't mind helping save a reptile.
Yeah, I'm looking into that out here. The gentleman's that does it around us. He's up there in the years, a retired veteran. Anyway, he's long in the tooth, and I think he's about to get out of it. I'm looking into doing that and see what type of permits I need just for my local area, to go get and relocate. Rattlesnakes or whatever it is, I'm down to do that to help out, put them in a right home versus someone just taking a shovel to them.
Exactly. You know, you just so many of them are killed through people. You know, they're such an important part of the food chain. Rattlesnakes, you know, another big one too. People are so quick to unalive here. You know, we don't realize how many ticks they get rid of too. I mean, of course we know that they get rid of rats. Everybody knows that. But you know, you don't think about all the ticks. I think there was a study done recently with one species of rattlesnake, and it showed that on average they ate about 2,500 ticks a year. Not that they go after the ticks, but the animals that they eat that have ticks on them. So you help reduce those as well.
Yes.
So you know
and
that's
eliminating Lyme disease and all that other
Yep.
That you get from deer ticks and stuff like that, fevers and whatnot.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Guys, don't be scared of them. Just respect them. Okay. Nothing to be scared of. Respect. Right, and that's what we teach all the time. You got to learn respect. If you don't mess with them, they're probably not going to mess with you.
Exactly. You know? Snakes are, for the most part, snakes are going to be cowards before they are warriors, right? Yeah. That whole I was chased by a water moccasin, you weren't chased by a water moccasin. Now, do I believe they may have slithered between your legs or something like that? Because
okay, then you haven't been down there to Hogs Pond by Lily Creek in Gilmer, Texas, where I'm from. Them water moccasins, them jerkles would come out of a tree. Yeah, well, I've been chased by one.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe it's just a certain species of moccasin, like a cottonmouth or something, but they can be a little aggressive.
They might be defensive, they might go past you, but snakes don't have the capability, right? You got to think this venom that they have is so important to them. It's how they defend themselves and how they're going to eat. They need it for either eating or like something's got them cornered. They're not going to chase you down to waste that valuable resource.
No, they're not.
They might fall out of something. They might be in a boat or startle you.
Right. Or you're like those bass fishermen, and then they see one and they start whacking it with their rod and reel, and then they catch it and it flies up in the boat with them.
Yeah, see, they might come after your if you're fishing or whatever you got on the end of your hook.
Yeah,
you know, I'll believe that. You know, the other thing too is they're not too bright. You know, let's say there's two males. One of them sees the other one from across the pond, and you're out there swimming. It might look like it's coming at you, but it don't want nothing to do with you. You know, they really could care less what you're doing, as long as you don't have them cornered, as long as you're not stopping them from what they're trying to do. So really, really placid creatures that typically just want to be left alone for the most part. But luckily here in America, most of our venomous stuff is pretty easy to handle. I mean, the big eastern diamondbacks can be a little rough just because of their size sometimes. But copperheads, water moccasins, you know, the majority of our rattlesnakes, super, super easy to work with as compared to some of the South American stuff like bushmasters, the bothrops, things like that.
Hey, now we're bringing up some other species. I got two things I had in mind. You don't see people keep sidewinders, or you don't see many coral snakes in collections. And why is that, do you think?
So I don't really know too much about sidewinders. They might be under the same categories, but coral snakes are very hard to keep alive in captivity. I don't personally know anybody that has. I'm sure there's some keeper out there, maybe somebody in the chat does know, but they are a little bit harder to establish in captivity. I know some of them will require that assist feeding, and that's pretty difficult. They're smaller, they're a lot more reclusive, especially if you're out there looking for wild caught ones. There's people that spend forever looking for them actively, and they just don't come across them. So not an easy species to keep in captivity. I'm not too familiar. I don't believe we have any captive breeding programs for them. You know, so it's just one of those things that's better left out in the wild. Kind of like the eastern hognose. You know, the western hognose is pretty easy to keep, but eastern's not too easy to keep in captivity. So yeah, there you go. Venom heads. Coral snakes are very difficult because of their the husbandry too.
Yeah,
so
I've heard that.
Even if you catch one, it's not going to establish well.
Interesting. I wonder if sidewinders, if it's the desert, you know, sand environment and the space to roam about. I mean, at least from the nature shows I've watched, they really cover some ground when they want to.
They do. They're super cool. I'm not too educated on that species, but they are pretty neat. I'd love to be able to work with one if I ever got the chance. So Venom says he works with corals all the time. Yeah, man, Venom's got a lot of cool critters too. He's got a lot of venomous experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, it just always we've got people. The drumbeat is growing for Marilyn Monroo.
She's asleep right now. You gotta give them their rest. Like I said, it's 18 to 22 hours a day. They're going to be knocked out. So you got to let them rest when they're babies. You can't play with them too much. You can't stress them out. Just luck of the draw that she decided to wake up about 45 minutes before the this live began. And I'm like, there we go. We're capitalizing on it. Normally they're asleep at nighttime too. So it was just pure luck that I was able to have her out, get her bottle.
Ha!
You guys, listen, you guys go pick up everybody in the comments. Everybody pick up everybody. Let's help this community, right? Let's help keep supporting the reptile community so we can keep doing what we're doing. We appreciate it. We appreciate all the love, guys. Thank you. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. Naughty Business Live. Thank you for these badass venomous snakes we're looking at. This is crazy cool. This is such a good time, guys.
I've heard bush vipers are maybe more rewarding, by far more affordable, and have more of a box of chocolates type of variability to their color compared to Insularis. What are your thoughts on those two species?
So I love my bush vipers. Like I said, mine's in shed at the moment. I don't mind showing you though. I've got two. So they do cohab together. That's one right there. I'm just gonna I just kind of moved her to the side so y'all could see. I'll let her slither on back. There's a second one kind of back there, cruising a little bit. It just depends. Like some of them come a little bit more bluish color. This one's obviously a lot more lime green color. But bush vipers are a whole lot easier to keep. In my opinion, they're a whole lot cheaper. So arboreal vipers in general, they're a little bit difficult to get established. Eyelash vipers, Insularis, whatever. So if you're gonna mess up on a snake, it's a lot better to mess up on a $60 viper than it is an $800 viper.
Show that green one again.
Yeah, people were tripping on that.
Yeah, on your green one.
Way more venomous.
Yeah, she's still a little deep in shed. I don't want to disturb her too often, but she's great. It took me a long time to get her established too. Since she's still, I'll film her till she goes back underneath her thing.
How arboreal are they?
Just a second. Let's don't disturb her too much. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
she almost looks like a chondro laying down there with that green and yellow.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Black skin in between the scales.
Wow.
These guys will not recognize a water bowl for the most part. I still have one in there, just in case, but I do spray them down, and you're going to see them drinking from their scales, the side of the glass, the leaves, things like that.
Huh?
So that's another thing you have to know about with these guys, too. They're not going to be drinking out of a water bowl like a cobra or a ball python.
Where do they come from endemically?
They're an African species. So a little bit drier area where they're from. Again, not super hot either. I think it's another mistake that people make with the African species like gaboon vipers, rhinos, and bush vipers. They almost want to cook them, right? They want to keep them at super hot temperatures. So really make sure you're keeping them, I always say in the 80s. 80s is perfect for them. It's warm, but you're not cooking them.
See, we're learning that the more we talk to, different keepers in this hobby, no matter what it is, everyone says err on the cooler side of their ranges to be safe. So you don't, heat stress them and cause potential harm.
You will kill your snake a whole lot faster keeping it too hot than you would keeping it too cold.
Oh, yes.
Exactly, like Gage said, they like shade. They're bush vipers. They're not gonna be out in the sun. They're not gonna be in the middle of a desert. They're gonna be in that brush, waiting for smaller things to come by to nail. So now I will say, in my experience, they're a little more defensive than the Insularis. So if you like something with a little more attitude than the Insularis, these guys are the ways to go. Don't get me wrong, Insularis are beautiful, but I just happen to like these scales a little bit more, and I like their personalities as well. They remind me of little dragons. And I kind of, just kind of like the challenge of getting them established too. Like I said, the first one that I had in the back there took me a month and a half. This one took me 4 months to finally get eating, and it was good to go. And they don't have the body fat like your ball python. Your ball python goes on a hunger strike for a couple months. It's not a big deal. It can pick up where it left off. This thing goes on a hunger strike for too long. There's really no fat reserves on this critter. It could be a bad day. So, it's the same thing with things like mangrove snakes, etc.
Right. Okay. So definitely on your venomous, no reason to get them nice, big, and fat. Yeah, I don't think any snake really needs to be overfed. I agree with that. Ball pythons can eat and be a little on the heavy side, but I don't think you need to get them too overweight, Being
really
thin's
don't.
always in. Being fat's where it's at. But with your reptiles, that can cause health issues, for sure.
It can, you know, with like the non-venomous stuff. If you've got an indigo snake, like I'll bring out here in a bit, or you know, king snake, cobras on the venomous side, it's okay to give them that extra rat that your ball python didn't want. That's not going to do too much damage. They got such fast metabolisms, they'll enjoy it. But like with the heavier bodied stuff, I really do want to stick to you know, that specified diet. They're not going to miss a meal. It keeps their body types perfect. You know, don't be afraid to feed your animals now. You know, I see that's one other mistake too. I see people feeding you know, 3.5-foot berms, adult mice. You know, they need a little bit more than that. Look a little skinny. But, you know, don't be feeding them a medium rat every 5 days either.
Okay. Wow, a lot of good info, guys, tonight. A lot of good info we got here. Super awesome. Super awesome.
Absolutely.
Now, are they pretty much, they're mellow, just leave them alone, but when you get in the cage, I mean, is their attitude obviously very different than the cobra's attitude?
Once you start messing with them, their attitude's gonna change. I'm just setting up my camera here to bring out another critter. But yeah, once you stick your hand in there, your hook, their attitudes are gonna change a little bit. They'll start getting a little more on the snippy side, but they do ride a hook pretty well. Sometimes a little too well. I see one of the biggest fears with new keepers is they don't want to get off the hook, and that freaks them out. Don't freak out. You know, I always keep two long, skinny hooks with me. That way I can kind of hook them with the first one, and when they're coming up, pass them off to the second one and get them going where I need them to go.
Listen, guys, I'm going to give y'all a little tip right now, okay? If you guys are out herping in your neck of the woods, you know, just looking for reptiles, snakes, and things like that, if you don't have you one of these, or snake hooks like he has, listen, this is the Dreadnought signature, okay? Go to your big box store and get you like those paint rollers, right? You can take a paint roller and a big old long stick, and you can use that as a snake hook as well. So they're called paint frames. You know, you put the big fuzzy rollers on. You can use, and then they even make littler 6-inch ones. Those make really good snake hooks as well if you're just out, you know, doing hobby. Fooling around in the wild, you know, where you live, right? You can put those together for cheap and have fun. But what I recommend, even if you got a pole screwed into the end of it, duct tape that on there so that don't slide off. Like fasten that, make it tight, and you can go out and have fun and enjoy a day out of herping and do it safely.
That's the thing too. I mean, some of my favorite hooks that I have are custom hooks. So there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah, homemade works just as good.
Non-venomous things too.
Ooh,
this is one of my favorite milk snakes. I haven't really seen too many like this guy.
No, I was going to say I haven't seen too many like that.
What kind of milk snake is this?
It was sold to me as a splotched milk snake. Like I said, I can't find anything like it on Morph Market. Haven't seen it too much at shows. I saw it at an expo near me, and it was relatively cheap, so definitely decided to pick it up. But it's such a sweet animal.
It looks like a candy. It looks like candy corn. Hey, it looks like candy corn.
It kind of does. It's got, you know,
the colors
really
on
cool
candy
patterns.
corn. That's what that looks like. That is super awesome.
You know, a lot of people think he's venomous when they come over, and I have him in his own display enclosure as well. A lot of my colubrids I do keep in racks. This one gets a little special privilege.
Man, that is neat. And you know what? I'm friends with JD. He hosts the Colubrid Corruption on YouTube. And he was a keynote speaker at Colubrid Fest in Indianapolis about a month ago. The guy is very well plugged in, knows his stuff very well. And due to like kind of being friends with him and starting to see some of his community like on Instagram and stuff, I've seen a lot of some colubrids from, you know, old world overseas that are just blow me away. And that is one I have never laid eyes on, dude. That is amazing. That's the second animal you've had tonight I have never seen. And I am generally well versed, if nothing else, with my own eyes, because I just love nature. I've been a nature nerd since I was about 5, so that's awesome.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good opportunity. You know, I don't bring out a whole lot of the non-venomous stuff, so I'll take a little of an opportunity to show some stuff that people can handle with. It's not too hard. Keeping a milk snake alive is incredibly easy. You know, and they come in all kinds of amazing colors. My albino Nelson's milk snake is another one of my favorites too. So all kinds of really cool colors. Just depends what you want. This one, like I said, I'm not a pro with colubrid genetics, but he was just so neat looking, and I was like, this is the coolest milk snake I've seen. I absolutely had to have him. I think they had him for like $100 at one of the expos. So he had.
Oh yeah, he'd have been hard to pass up, no doubt. Good looking as that snake is, yeah.
He's kind of funny. Actually, I saw him at an expo before, and I'd spent my money for that expo, and I'm like, damn, I wish I had some to get him. And I came back like 2 months later, same table, same expo. Somehow he stayed throughout multiple expos. Nobody wanted him. So I was like, oh, yeah, you're definitely coming home this time around.
Wow.
Hey, Histoff, you're in the Carolinas, ain't you? Someone asked.
I'm in Virginia.
Oh, Virginia. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The Commonwealth of Virginia.
Good old Commonwealth. I do like our reptile laws here. The only thing I would change, it's sad we can't have any crocodilians. That's the only thing that drives me crazy.
Really?
So I'd love to have a caiman, but aside from I can't complain. They let us keep venomous. They let us keep the berms and the retics, so no big complaints.
Fred is a type of milk snake, Fred.
That is that's probably one of the nicest, prettiest milk snakes I've seen, no doubt.
It is so unique.
I think out of all of them I've seen, that one right there would be the one I would like to have.
They're always banded, and this one has, long vertical lines down it. That's just totally different from a milk snake. It reminds me of a garter pattern with a killer custom paint job. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like say when I got it, it was kind of weird because it said splotched. Like I had the quotation marks around splotched, and I'm like, that's kind of weird. I tried to Google it, I tried to morph market it, and I just couldn't find anything like it. So yeah, I figured I'd just get it, and hopefully maybe somebody who knows a whole lot more about milk snakes than me could one day tell me. I brought a lot of my friends, and they're like, yeah, we've never seen anything like it. So he just
text me a
as
picture of that.
And,
I'll give you an answer. Text me a picture. I don't know the answer, but I know somebody who does. I'm sure.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I'd love to learn more about him.
Stuff.
If I could ever recreate this, that'd probably be one of the only non-venomous I'd want to do. I'd love to see more of these. The guy did have a whole bunch of babies, and one of the individuals I know, he bought, after I got him, he went back to that table and bought all the babies. Fortunately, due to, I think it was some kind of heating accident in his facility, he lost all of them, and that was really sad. So
yeah, but if you could breed to recreate that, definitely that'd be something cool to work with, no doubt. That is just crazy awesome.
He's brave.
Yeah,
I'll bring up.
I don't think I've seen that in your photos on your pages. I don't believe.
I did a video with him before. Like I said, I stick to the venomous stuff mainly. That's just what people want to see, and I try to be entertaining. I try to be educational. I want to show stuff off that you're not going to see at a pet store. Like if I put a ball python on, my views will drop from 400 or 500 down to 20 really quick. People get bored. It's hard to stay entertaining and keep on talking and be engaging. I just try to keep people's attention, but it's a good time to show something a little bit different.
Yeah, we definitely get that with the ball python game. Hence the naughty business show coming about. Let's do something to keep people entertained and bring something else to the table. And
no hate against them. I have 26 ball pythons, and I love them.
Yeah.
They're wonderful animals. But they're still a ball python. If I'm at an expo and I see a ball python table, I'm gonna look and keep walking. I feel horrible.
I mean, I'm a ball python guy, but again, it is at the expos and things like that. You got to have variety. You need to have some different things to be, to show and play with to keep the excitement there. I agree.
Exactly. Just something a little different. I like to work with different things too. I can get out another one too. Another species that people haven't really worked with too much in the States. I only know myself and a couple other individuals is the Peter's hooknose snake. It kind of looks like a weird cross between a milk snake and a hognose snake. Let me see if I can get a hook and get that one out real quick to show y'all. Let's see.
They need the laundry.
Yeah, someone said the ball python tables are insane. Yeah, Gage. At 90% of Florida shows, Probably because the crackdown on everything else, that market's kind of just trying to fill a niche.
It's kind of insane at every show with the ball pythons. I get
Wow.
it. It is. I get. Whoa, okay.
This might be something you haven't seen yet. I don't know. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. This is a pierced hooknose snake. They don't adjust too well to captivity. But I found a way to keep these guys alive. I'd like to be able to get more. This is a big female that I got. They're really neat little critters. It's kind of cool because the inside of their mouth is black, like a black mamba.
Fossiler, they dwell in the dirt mostly? Like a sunbeam?
They are a fossorial snake. They're kind of like nest raiders. So the way I feed these guys, I actually have them in a rack. No heating in there. It just stays about 80-ish. The room's 80-ish degrees. That's the best way I found to keep them. I keep them on aspen, and I just put like a pile of rat pups in there, and they'll just clean out the pile, and that's about it. I put about 4 or 5 in there for them a week, and they'll raid that quote unquote nest, and that's it. And she's thriving. She's doing absolutely amazing. It took me a long time to figure out how to get her going, but she stayed around, and she's looking so healthy and neat. These are a really cool species.
Give her something to hunt. Give her something to hunt like she's in the wild.
Exactly. A lot of people try to keep them in display enclosures too. That's not going to work for these guys. They will stress. I keep them in a darkened rack. So that seems to be the best thing for them. They like to be uptight. They like to be in a lot of bedding. And like I said, they are super friendly too. So really cool snakes. Once you get them established, they don't stress out. Non-venomous, and they've got a really cool little like beak on there. It's just so cool. And their feeding response is really cool too. Watch them just clean out those nests. It's frozen thawed food. I don't feed them live. I did when I first tried to get them going. But they'll have no problem switching over to frozen thawed once you do get them established.
Very cool.
A lot of similarities to the sunbeam that I did some research on because I was entertaining a pair of them, and the same concept of the stressing, leaving them alone, letting them to their own devices, and a lot of people have a hard time doing that. So
exactly,
that's rad. You don't see those a bunch, man.
No,
that is awesome.
One of my mentor, he's got 3. He keeps them together, and this is actually another species that you can cohab. I don't. It's the only one that I have right now. But if you had like 1 male to 2 females, you could easily keep them in like a 40-gallon enclosure together, and they're not going to fight. They're not going to stress. They do pretty well, and they they'll be fine with that. So kind of just another cool little fact about these guys.
What family are they classified?
They want to keep snakes together, and there's not much that you can. This is one of them.
What family are they? I mean, they're colubrid, but what other taxonomy is there to them? Or what else are they related to?
I don't know the scientific name of these guys off the top of my head. Eric's done. He can probably Google it for me real quick. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what they're related to. I just know there's some kind of colubrid.
I almost get a vibe of a gopher snake, a specialized nose on a gopher snake head and eye structure.
They're so cool. I wish I could get it to open its mouth for you all too, but it's just so cool to watch them actually eat. They are one of the most fun snakes to feed.
Are they gentle? Do they go about it? Because there's a pile of them and they sneak up and are they a gentle eater? Are they strikers or?
They're pretty gentle eaters, but they got some pretty powerful jaws. Like it's kind of crazy to actually hear the crunch behind it. You don't really hear that with a lot of them. You actually hear the crunch when they bite. Like, ooh, those are some powerful jaws. But she's never taken a swing at me. I've never seen them bite, so I can't tell you how much that bite would hurt. But I'm gonna assume they've got some pretty powerful jaws because they'll clear out that little nest in just a couple of minutes. I mean, they'll eat 5 rat pups. In well under 3 or 4 minutes.
Oh wow!
Wow.
So relatively fast metabolism too. They're not really going to refuse a meal. So if you ever have a whole bunch of rat pups or something, if you're trying to feed some babies, they'll clear it out for you. Just kind of simulate a nest. And I've just recently started to be able to get her to take off a tongs for me.
Nice.
Super awesome.
Do you breed your own rats? How do you handle your rodent demands?
I don't breed my own rats. I've got a couple of buddies of mine that breed close by, or I just order off a Rodent Pro for my frozen thawed. So I'm lucky enough to have a couple of people nearby that if I do need some live ones, I got it. There's quite a few pet stores near me as well. that I can just get those live stuff if I really absolutely have to have
Spoiled
it.
rotten. You're spoiled rotten, man. I tell you, you're lucky because I don't have that kind of accessibility. That's nice.
Yeah, we're blessed here. We've got some really good pet shops in my area of Virginia, so definitely no shortage there. I couldn't do it. I couldn't breed my own rats. I thought about it for a while. They're just too nasty for me.
It's some labor. I breed my own. It's some work, but I don't mind. But you're right. Some places in the country, the feeders, it's like barren. You know, it's hard to find a good place or good quality somewhere to get them without ordering. You know, say from Rodent Pro or Big Cheese or whatever. You know, it is. And then what's affordable, right? That's a whole nother topic. The prices people are asking for some of this stuff is just are you kidding me? There's no way I would give you that much for what you know, but you got to feed your animals, so
Absolutely.
You're definitely lucky to
snakes.
have that.
You know, I've seen like the big jumbo rats by me go for the $14 to $17 a piece. And that's insane when you think, especially when you have a whole bunch of burbs and retics. What I do,
I'll let them go for $7.
A bunch of the farmers. It just depends.
I'll let a jumbo go for $7. That's nothing. Yeah,
I try to find people that are getting out of them, and that really helps too. I'll try to buy out their retired breeders. But for the most part, that's what I'm faced with. But luckily, all the farmers by me, they got excess roosters. They only need so many roosters, like one rooster for every 100 chickens. So one of those chicks starts crowing, they call me up. I'll go over there with a box. It's we dispatch them and we freeze them off, and then we feed them off to the berms and the retics.
Right on.
So
there you
it
go.
costs me almost nothing to keep those alive. Same with the boas too. I've got a few boa constrictors. That's the majority of their diet. I've got a rabbit breeder. She does the show. I don't know much about rabbits either, but she does all the showing for them, the top quality stuff where the rabbits go for an insane amount of money.
Yep.
If they don't sell and they don't win some kind of prize, to the freezer they go. And it's a sad reality, but that's just how it is for that niche of ownership for pets.
Yeah, it is.
KK, my rats aren't mean. My breeders are like pets. We take good care of them. They let me reach in there.
Mean ones don't stay around. If they bite, they go.
Yeah,
because other rats will learn that behavior. If they're biters, they go.
Yeah, it's sad. I just saw somebody mention Dingo on there. I always want to pay homage to him. That was a really great individual. He was about as close to Steve Irwin as we had. So definitely sad to see him go.
That was a black mamba?
Green Mamba.
Green mamba.
Yes, I have, KK. I've been bit by a rat, and it does not feel good. I've had one hang on, and I came out of the tub with it, and she was still holding on. She left. She didn't stay around very long.
A rat bite's going to hurt a lot worse than most snake bites.
You're dang right. I'd rather get bit by a ball python any day than a rat. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah. I don't biters and chewers, they go.
Stop.
Let's see. What's another cool thing to breed?
I've been bit by hamsters more than rats, probably because in years gone by, you go and do, oh, this is a little pet. This is a cute little fuzzy hamster. Ow, you son of a bitch. And rats, you're kind of like, okay, I'll get you by the tail. You're going to, but rat bites, yeah, the bigger they are, the nastier, obviously, a bite is from a rodent. But I think, myself, you got to be kind of careless with the rats, or like either you've not been around them a lot, or they just are, like you said, it just happens to be a mean specimen. That I've been bit by mice and hamsters and stuff way more than I've ever been bit by a rat, maybe once or twice in my life. But I don't know. Maybe I just dumb luck. I'm not sure.
We're getting asked for the Crebo.
Oh, yeah, my Crebo's a menace. I won't bring him out. But we are able to bring this little guy out. This is one of my baby indigo snakes. I love him.
Ryan's getting in the Crebos. He's close to you in the Carolinas.
So is a bunch of Florida crew in the V unit. They've got these. They've got Crebos. They're all about these.
I love Crebos. So that was, I won't say burned on it. The guy said that he had it for years. That wasn't the case. We found out, but it was a wild caught one. It's established now. It's doing fantastic, but it's mean as can be. I mean, you try to take it out. It's a 7, almost 8 foot Crebo, and it's going to come out of there like a bat out of hell. It's just ready to rock and roll all the time. So it's kind of interesting. That's probably one of the more painful bites I got. I remember day one of getting it, because my buddies got a whole bunch. Same, my mentor Don. They're really cool. Really acid. This thing, I had it wrapped around my hand. It tried to hit me right in the face, came back, missed my arm, and then it got me right in the fat. And I was tasting colors. That hurt so bad.
Ah, really?
Right.
So yeah, I wouldn't recommend. Now I've got a really healthy respect for that Crebo. It's kind of like a challenge now. Whenever I have somebody come over to the house for the first time, and I know there's snake keepers, like, hey, go ahead and get that Crebo out for me. Go ahead. Here's
I saw a really cool husbandry tip, trick, just someone's personal choice, which was an enclosure, whatever. It was 4x3x2 or something. But they took and they put drawer sliders on the bottom and put commercial busboy drawers in there under the bottom. And they used a hole saw, like a 2-inch or something hole saw, put them in the floor of this enclosure. And then these drawers slid in just like kind of like a Freedom Breeder ARS ball python rack. But he had tubs down in there, one dry, one humid, and he had 2 of them in the floor. And then up in the enclosure was more of the branching and things when it wanted to come out. But it was really cool to have a little hidey hole for it where they felt secure. And they'd straight up go down in there. And yeah, you're right. They're fast as hell. They pop out of there with they mean business when they come on up out of their little hidey hole.
Yeah, my Crebo likes to bury itself in the substrate. I'll leave a pretty deep layer in there. And I had one of my friends over, and he goes, "Hey, I don't want to scare you, but I think your Crebo got out." I'm like, "It didn't get out." And he goes, "Yes, it did." And so he opens the door, like it somehow faces the door, and he starts digging around. That thing popped out. It was so funny to watch him fly back. Oh God, I absolutely love that. That Crebo is like a prized possession of mine now, just because of its spicy attitude. Sometimes I'll bring it. I've got some friends that just love colubrids that tag them, like my Vietnamese Blue Beauty, some of that stuff. So that's a real good thing for them to play with. I only bring it out for few events. I had it out for one of the lives, and somebody mistook it for a mamba. I thought that was pretty funny. I got a notice from them, and they said, "Hey, I hope you're not being the second coming of Jeff handling that mamba." And it was the Crebo. That's what they must have meant, was the Crebo.
Yeah.
That's funny.
That's funny. Well, it sounds like you have a good time on your lives, that's for sure.
Oh, I do. I have an absolute blast. I mean, even some of the negativity that we get, you just got to laugh it off.
Yeah, you got to just let that roll off. Yeah, ignore it, roll with it. Exactly.
Yeah. Not everybody loves the exotic animal hobby. It's a good thing to talk about too. You can't get mad at it. You can't lose your temper. You have a discussion on it. What if I did let that cobra loose? Okay, well, it's not going to survive. It's an albino cobra. It lasts for a couple. Same with the wallaby. I've gotten a few comments on that. Why can't you let it go? Well, if
what
you saw how little that albino was. How long do you think that would last in Australia? Think it would last 10 minutes? So it's just one of those things to discuss. Even like the captive bred program, like indigo snakes. Now, this isn't an Eastern. This is a Texas. But y'all know the Easterns are, endangered in some areas. There's restrictions on some of them. And that part of that is the pet trade. So if you have enough in captivity and, you're actively breeding them, then there won't be a need to poach them out of the wild. People aren't going out and, really importing a whole bunch of comet goldfish now, right? Because there's just so many of them. You get it for 20 cents. There's no point in doing it. So, that's just one of the reasons that's, I don't know much about fish. I'm just throwing an example out there. I could be wrong. Maybe they're wild caught. I assume they come from a farm. But that's just one of the things about it. If there's enough in the pet trade, you're not going to have to go fish them out of the wild too much. It's not going to be a profit for them. So I would say captive breeding is conservation for sure.
Agreed. And I think the same about zoos. People like zoos, with the way they were run historically in the past was inhumane. But I think now, since, God, dude, it's been 30, 40 years, zoos constantly evolve to be more ethical in their keeping of the animals and that should be in the wild. Well, every time you properly keep an animal, whether it's an elephant or an ant, you might spur that next kid on a field trip to become a great biologist or learn something or find a cure for cancer, because it plants the seed of wonderment and the education that's there. And so there is a balance between having animals behind glass or behind the bars versus does the good outweigh the bad? what is it doing, like you say, for conservation to be able to learn how to harness breeding them in captivity to further either repopulate the wild or keep from taking from the wild, and hopefully some of both. So there's a nice balance, and obviously your animals are healthy, skin's clear, they're not scarred up, you're feeding properly, you know what you're doing. You know, there's just a lot of health signs that any snake keeper could identify. So the husbandry stuff and the people that want to beat you up about it maybe just don't know. Like, even like you said, well, this particular animal wants to be in a tub, and this one could be in glass, but it needs more humidity. There's all these subtle nuances, and you've got it dialed in. And people take that for granted. They pop into a live and just become a keyboard warrior without...
Exactly.
And like me, hell, I don't know half of what you do, but that's why I enjoy learning it, is because I respect the time you put into doing that to get there.
Yeah. Some of the best advice that I got from some other mentors I had too was, don't get upset over the people that have those comments unless they keep it themselves. With all due respect, I don't need to hear from somebody who's only been keeping a bearded dragon for a year how to keep a rhino viper. We might know something on that. So it's no shade at all. I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to discuss how you keep certain things in the way that you keep them. Like, I would never keep a mangrove snake in a rack. That's something that'd be like more arboreal. It's always good to discuss that. But unless you have that experience, just talk to different people. I have no problem getting better advice on how to keep stuff. If it's maybe you're keeping better than me in some way, shape, or form. But it's always good to learn from other people. That's for sure. And even you talked about when you're going to influence the next kid, right? It's kind of hard to find probably almost any snake keeper that wasn't influenced by Steve Irwin. I'm pretty sure everybody in this chat and everybody on your page saw Steve Irwin at some point, and that's why they keep anything from the ball pythons to the king cobras.
And if not Steve, Brian Barczyk, right? The late great. Any of our late great guys, God bless you. We love you forever, right? Exactly. You're saying it. You need to have an open dialogue, right? And try to find that common ground instead of that negativity, because you're right. And that could discourage a new keeper, that wants to get into it. And we need new keepers to be in this hobby to keep this stuff thriving and keep the work going that our forefathers, put into it and done.
I see a lot of ugliness on Facebook, and it's okay to say something and correct somebody's actions. But, don't bully them out of there. I'll see somebody keeping a corn snake or a bearded dragon and not the best of enclosure, but you could tell it's because they're new, and just say, hey, there's some stuff you could be doing better. Don't say, you should have known this animal, you're horrible. Don't shame them out of the hobby. I've had some people say, oh, I did this and it passed away. I don't ever want to keep again. Well, no, learn from what you did. It was bad. I'm not going to defend it, but maybe you could still donate your time and your money to helping another critter out in a better way. You use those what you learned.
Oh, and sometimes you got to think of the source. Where did they get that animal? They might have thought, I'm getting this pet. They don't have an educated eye. I got this thing. And it ended up being wild caught or horribly chronically mistreated in the Petco system or PetSmart or something along the way. Mass bred and just shot out the end of the cannon to the masses. And that maybe the animal they got most likely didn't come from an experienced breeder who was going to walk them through the steps and help them not fail by giving them a healthy animal born in captivity that's parasite free. And when you got questions, they were there before and after the sale. People that sometimes say, oh, well, I bought a bearded dragon and it died after I had it for 3 weeks. I got it at Petco. Okay, but, if there's just a difference in where you got your animal from. And maybe that person was a wonderful reptile keeper, but it was already doomed to fail, and they didn't know it. Nobody would know it until the thing was
no fault of their own.
Yeah, So don't turn yourself off. Look at the source, and then look at everything else, husbandry, food, and yada, yada, yada. But I feel like sometimes people just jump the gun. They think, oh, I bought an animal, it should live, right? Well, where did it come from first?
Do your research, right? That's what these lives are about. The community's growing. There's a lot of good info now that, versus what there was years ago. It's available, right? There's the good information's available to you.
I had a guy that I mentored about a year or so ago. He worked with me with the retics and the barms, and he really wanted to be a venomous keeper. And of course, what you want to go after is the gaboon viper. That's what he had to have. So I tried to tell him, and he wouldn't listen to me on that one. He goes, well, why am I going to pay $175 for a CBB one? I've got this importer tell me he'll sell it for $70. And so he got it, and he showed it to me, and it was about the most sickly little thing. I mean, you could tell it was not going to survive. And he's a great keeper. I mean, he keeps his stuff immaculate. 4 days later, it's dead. And then he's calling me and goes, man, I messed up. You know, I don't think I have what it takes to be a venomous keeper. You didn't mess up. You know, you didn't know the source of your animal. And I could tell you from the minute you showed it to me in the deli cup, you weren't going to have it a month. So, I mean, I don't think you did anything wrong with it at all. You know, we went over everything, and he kept it immaculate. It was just too far gone. So, you know, it's always good to check those sources. I really don't want to see them anymore at PetSmart. Now, I will say at my Petco, they actually do, I think they source out to like local breeders. They get some absolutely immaculate ball pythons in. They sell them for a fortune, but they do have some really cool morphs come across. So they must do something there. But for the most part, yeah, it's going to be, you know, mass bred, imported ball pythons they probably paid $5 for, and they're trying to resell for $99.
Right.
I love the mask.
We're in the holiday spirit here, buddy. So what's next for you, Jake? Where do you want to go? What's something you would like to get into next, whether it's a new species or a breeding plan, or what are you thinking?
I mean, my biggest goal at the end is probably what a lot of people, I'd like to open up my own version of a reptarium in the future.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big goal. It's many, many years away. But my goal right now is just to gain a following, get people to hopefully love the animals first. You know, if you can inspire enough people to fall in love with them, maybe they'll want to see them in person, and maybe they'll want to support it. You know, also try to go against different animal restriction laws as well. There's a lot of people that just are not well versed, and they see big snake scary, venomous snake scary, ban. We all saw what happened with big cats. We all saw what happened with the chimpanzees. These guys are next on the chopping block for sure, especially with recent events. So trying to bring education to other people en masse is the current goal that I've got. We could try to stand up in front of these politicians as much as we want and fight it, but I just don't think that's the best way to go about it. I'm not trying to send any hate to things like USARK or whatever, but you don't see a whole lot of results, in my opinion, on that. But if you get enough people together, they'll say, wait, I love indigo snakes. I love cobras. I don't want to see those banned. You know, I learned about it from people like Venom Man or me or whoever they watch. Then that might be able to be the best way to keep them around. So instead of fighting it directly at the source, kind of start with the root, the people who are scared. Why are they banning them? People are scared. If you can get rid of that fear, maybe it won't be such an outcry, right? That's kind of my current goals.
I agree.
I heard there's a Netflix like Tiger King-esque show going to come out about our famous taipan victim.
So I've heard it was I've heard mixed things. Okay, I've heard that it was BS. I've heard it is happening. I've heard it isn't happening. I heard that he just made it up. I think with that individual, I'm not going to name him. He doesn't deserve to have his name mentioned on social media any more than it has. Nope. But you know, I think his new motto is negative attention is still attention.
Yep.
So you know, I've heard from a couple individuals that was a story that he's kind of made up, but I could be wrong. Maybe it's already done. Maybe it is what it is.
I hope so, because if not, it could rile a lot of people that are completely unaware of this. Are going to go, oh, well, now I'm going to become a Karen and I'm going to take up this cause and we're going to get these things outlawed, damn it. And he's going to make himself look like a saint. So I really hope that it's just a bunch of BS.
Absolutely. I really hope it is. I mean, he's not the prime example. There are, like I said, with anything, there's bad keepers. With certain breeds of dogs. I mean, dogs kill, you know, triple digits a year here in the United States. But we're not really calling for bans on those. We're lucky if a dog attack makes local papers.
They're only wanting to ban the 2 or 3 species that aren't really causing that much of an issue.
Yep. You know, so it's like, I believe there's been, you know, we obviously had the one incident, but that individual lived. And I know of a Gila monster bite that happened earlier this year, and it was the first bite since the 1930s that ended up unaliving somebody. You know,
wow.
Do we really think that one? I mean, he did everything wrong too. He was allergic to the venom. He was working with it alone.
So we shouldn't drive cars then, right? We can get in. There you go. You can take this any which way you want.
Yep. Exactly. No matter what it is, there's always going to be, no matter what it is, somebody's going to do the wrong thing with it. I mean, you know, and I'm not going to get political, but you look at countries that have banned firearms, they find another thing too. They'll find, you know, another way to unalive somebody. So just bans don't work. Restrictions never work. It never worked with different types of alcohol or whatever way back when they had prohibition. It's not working with other things nowadays. Yeah. You know, I don't want to mention on the live.
Hey, the war on drugs has turned out great. Look how Colombia's doing.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. So exactly, and I think a lot of people in our community feel the same way as we do about this. That it's nonsense. It really is. You take things to the extreme when it doesn't need to be.
Exactly. Give me just a second. I'm going to switch snakes. I only like to hold
Yeah,
them
let's
for a
switch
few
gears.
minutes.
Let's see some of the rest of your collection. I don't
Heck
want to
yeah,
keep you
keep
the
it
whole
going,
night.
guys.
Yeah, I'll show some stuff that I don't usually bring out. That I do like showing y'all. Let's see.
Chase, keep the questions in the comments tonight. We this is for our guest right now. Definitely, we encourage questions to come through the comments. We'll answer them the best we can. We do these Wednesday night lives, and we just try to focus on the guest the whole time because this is what they're about. And then sometimes as it gets later, depending on how the show goes, we'll let a few people. We might get somebody in the box to ask some questions and things like that. But we kind of just got to play it by ear. But we definitely want to include everybody and keep everybody involved, But definitely bring questions in the comments. We'll get them fielded, and there'll probably somebody in here that can answer them.
There we go. I'm just going to let this guy calm down for a second. This is one of my leucistic bull snakes. I love him a lot. He'll wind down here in just a second, and I'll be able to actually go both hands on him. Sometimes he's a little snippy. But he's a gorgeous critter. I named this one Voldemort. There we go. Now he's nice and calm. All huffies. All the huffies. Some people think this is one of my leucistic monocle cobras. It isn't. It isn't. There we go. All right, Bubba. You going to be nice to me today? Maybe. You might bite, might not. Say hello to everybody. I love bull snakes. This is an absolutely incredible one.
Bull snakes get huge.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
Females get what, 10, 12 foot, can't they?
I didn't know if they got that big. This one here,
No.
I don't think they're that big.
Red eyes doesn't mean venomous. There's a lot of colubras that have red eyes. They're just a non-venomous snake with red eyes.
No, this is a snow bull snake, possible lavender. So it might be het for lavender. Again, this is my first bull snake I've ever had. I've never tried breeding him. I got this in a trade, and I love him. He's become one of my favorites as well. Let's see.
Yeah, bulls they're cool. Very cool.
That tongue's flicking a mile a minute. I know he might latch on to me. Their bites are not the most fun. He's only tagged me once, but don't do it. Don't do it on the live. There we go. What a sweetie. I love the way their scales feel. They're so rough.
Yeah, he's white. He's white-ish.
So this is another cool species too. A lot of people say, "What's a good beginner snake?" If ball pythons and corn snakes and milk snakes bore you, this is another really cool species. They're really easy to keep. They get to an impressive size, and I promise you, they're never going to refuse a feeding. They're always going to want to eat. So they do kind of, like I said, you're very vocal. They do hiss a lot. They do this kind of like open mouth thing. They'll inflate themselves. They'll do a little tail rattle. It's kind of cute. But yeah, I think that they can make great first pets. If you want something a little bit spicier than the common corn snakes or other stuff you're going to see at PetSmart. I like them a lot.
Yes.
They get to an impressive size. Very personable critters. I wouldn't mind getting more of these guys as well. This is probably another one of the only non-venomous critters I'd like to add more of to the collection. I love indigos, and I really love these guys. There we go. Now you're wrapping around. Oops. Didn't mean that. He hit the camera. Let's go back. All right. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good.
He wants to be a technician now. He wants to be a camera tech. Oh, big huffies. I don't know how well it's picking up, but he's already starting to talk.
Ha.
All right, we're taking you back.
Ha, ha.
Yeah, they like to bluff a lot of times with huffing and puffing and whatnot. A lot of that is just bluff, but he knows his reptile, so he knows when he needs to put him back, right?
Oh,
you guys learn your reptile because each one, even your ball pythons, right? Each reptile, they're individuals, within themselves, so they're not all the same.
He's not likely to tag me. He really isn't. I just don't want to have ketchup on my arm for your live. I've gotten flagged before for that.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, one of my baby retics tagged me a few months back, and it was funny because I didn't even get the restriction until like 2 days later, and they replayed the thing. It was like appeal, and it was something like gore related or something like that. I'm like, it's just a little nibble. So now, if I think something's gonna tag, I'll just put it away. But yeah, both things are vocal. They're like Burmese pythons, man. They're not. They just huff a lot. It's just their thing.
Yeah, Burmese are really vocal. Agreed.
I love them. I'll always love them.
Oh yeah.
Burmese are my favorite snakes. If I could only keep one species, it'd be Burmese pythons.
What makes you like them so much?
They're just big puppy dogs. They're like the golden retrievers of the snake world. The other thing too, I don't think there's a more villainized snake out there. It just drives me crazy because of how sweet they are. You don't really find defensive adults. It's just so rare. There's always going to be the few outliers out there, but for the most part, they're just so chill. And they're also really easy to care for, too. Some of the biggest hate that I'll get whenever I give advice is I will say that Burmese pythons can potentially be good beginner snakes, as long as you're okay with the size. The size, is something you have to be aware of. But they're very easy to keep. They have there's a little bit more humid than a ball python. They do tame out pretty quick. Babies can be snippy, but adults are really sweet. You can have them for a long time. My oldest Burmese python is 27 years old. So it's, you can have a really good companion for a long time. And I don't really have to worry about them going off. If I bring one to an expo, I bring a retic out, it's always in the back of my mind that it could snap if it got the wrong whiff of food, or if it got the startled too easy or something. That retics have a little bit more of a trigger. Burms, they're just gonna vibe. I could walk around a pet shop for 2 hours with a big one around me and nothing's gonna happen. You doing, Bubba? There you go.
You have retics currently, right?
I do. I do.
Yeah.
That's actually my biggest thing. My biggest retic is just a little over 21 feet. Her name is Cheeseburger, and we've got a few other retics here as well.
What was it? Chance Minix? What question did we miss? I'm sorry. There's a lot of comments rolling by.
Yeah, I'm trying to see too what we missed.
Well, if we can, let's wrap up on some of your big boys and girls there. Show us what you keep them in, and we've already kind of touched on their food sources, and that's awesome.
I don't have any backup for the big constrictors. I only do that when I do have some assistance. All of my big snake lives, I've got at least somebody else out with me. And here, I've only got one baby Burmese python. But for them, it's already been lights out. I didn't plan to bring out any big constrictors. I'm sorry, y'all. But that's typically just Cheeseburger and Octavia, and a few others end up coming out.
Well, that's a lot of work, man. I mean, that's a lot to handle for sure. This is it's a totally different handling process, so I get it.
It is. I used to, when I first started, that's what I tried to do. And I mean, even the tripod I have now, they'd be knocking it over. And I'd love to replay some of my older lives because it's almost comical. Having the big guys just knocking over all the equipment, knocking over furniture. It was hysterical. So that's actually why I've started a whole separate snake room anyway. Everything in here is venomous or like small colubrids or even some smaller ball pythons. That whole room is just just boa constrictors, burms, and retics. That's all. And my tegus are in there as well. And that's just because that's stuff I need help with. Anything over 12 feet, I like to at least have somebody else in the room. So just about everything I have, aside from this baby Burmese python here, is that. I could try to get that out for you, though. Give me just
That's
a second.
actually a law in England. Did you know that? I think it's over 6 foot. That's a law. You're not supposed to handle them solo alone like that. I thought that was kind of weird.
Oh, I didn't know that was a law over there, but it doesn't surprise me.
Yes.
So what if you had an 18-foot one and unalived you, and then you're there and they find you 3 days later? Do they leave a citation on you when they stick you in the bag, or how does that ticket work out? Does it go to your will, or?
Right.
That's a good question.
You're in violation of Penal Code 14, paragraph C, section 3. Please see here. We're going to need you to sign this, man.
But definitely, I agree. Once you have a big snake like that, that's 12 plus feet. Two people, you should have,
I was
agree,
freaking
2 people's
16 years old handling those at the reptile shop, taking them out. I mean,
I know I'm going to get nailed by him, and I hate it. He's already given me that side eye. This is one of the Burmese I'm most proud of. This is an ivory Burmese python, and yeah, he's going to fucking nail me here in a second. It's going to hurt so fucking bad.
Put him away. We don't want you to get tagged.
It's just annoying when he does it, but I want to try to socialize him. I love him. I love that beautiful pattern on him, and I can't wait till he becomes a giant. This is one of the snakes I'm most proud of. A lot of people ask, what's your dream animal? And of course, Burms are the dream animal, but this is top of the list for me. So I've never shown him on a live before. He's growing at a relatively impressive rate, but yeah, he's gonna be no bueno. It's about as close to a blue-eyed Lucy Burm as you're gonna get.
Wow.
So,
that was one of my first big snakes, was a Burmese.
The pattern reduction is impressive.
They're great. A little dirty. Stop. You're not going up by my face yet. As babies, it's just natural with these big guys, right? They're going to be, they're going to be a little more on the defensive side. So you kind of have to handle them. I don't want you near my face. Let's get you back over here. Thank you, sir. But yeah, once they're a little bit bigger, it's not a problem. I have him up around me all the time. He's actually doing pretty good. He hasn't even huffed at me yet, so maybe we're making progress. Maybe this is the day that he wants to start loving me.
He knew he was on naughty business. He's like, I got to show out for my dad.
That's right.
Yeah, now see, he's making me look bad now, but I'm telling you, he's usually my menace snake. Him, my Crebo, and my Blue Beauty. That's like the trio of bad behavior in my snake room. So, this is like the prettiest Burmese python I think we've ever had here. Now, I've got about every morph except for pied. So we've got a lot of beautiful Burmese pythons, but this is the one I'm most excited to see grow up. I can't wait to see it. Hopefully he maintains that sleek pattern. I don't know if the camera's picking up on it, but it kind of deviates. He's got like a little bit more like pearl color on his belly than he does on his back.
Yeah, definitely. It's like a whole cream looking buff yellow down the back, more yellow on the head. And then the belly's really kind of a pure whitish ivory color. Really nice.
Really gorgeous critter. So it's kind of fun. Actually, I'm actually really enjoying this, y'all. I get to bring out different snakes that I don't usually bring out for the lives. It's actually a whole lot of fun for me.
Well, that's awesome. Hey, that's what we love. We hear that from every guest. People that have never touched TikTok, and they come on through our guest account, and they're like, "Man, this was so much fun. It was so interactive," and people get a hoot out of it. I think the interaction with the people in the comments and the questions, and then me and Dredd being half goofy, it's just, it ends up for a fun environment, and the gifting is different. It's better than YouTube, in my opinion. Reach be damned. It's just a more fun environment, more off the cuff. We love it, So we like to hear when guests do too, brother.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I will say too, I see a lot of comments about the larger snakes. If you guys like the larger snakes, this Saturday there'll be a couple other TikTokers coming up here, and they'll be able to help me with some of those large snakes. So make sure you
nice
for that live as well. We'll be bringing out some of the big 18-foot Burms, the Cheeseburger, the 21-footer, probably my smaller Pied if she's out of shed. So a few of the big babies will be out this upcoming Saturday.
Do you got something in an enclosure you could just close by? You could just kind of show the enclosure with one.
They got a bedroom.
It's lights out there. That's why it's all lights out.
No, I'm just asking. That's just because we're getting in the comments. So no, that's fine. We're good. Guys, lights out for them.
I'll show more. If I'm ever back on here, I'll bring out some big babies for you guys.
Dude, that's 18 and 21. Most people don't have the tenacity to stick with it to have one reach that size. I haven't seen that really, aside from like some serious, pro level people that have them in like a zoo educational type of a format, or at actual zoos that you pay to go look at them. You never see them 18, 20 foot really. Collections, I feel like people wimp out.
The biggest one that I've ever gotten to, the biggest one I've been able to work with, her name's Crazy Eyes. He's one of my, when I was learning retics, of course, I had a mentor for that too. And it was a big albino lavender tiger something else. 25 feet, it had 2 pupils in each eye. That's why it was called Crazy Eyes. And this thing was as mean as could be. It was the only aggressive retic I've met. Not defense. I mean, this thing was insane. That was truly an expert level snake. I couldn't believe it. So it was just so incredible to see. But he's still got that one. My biggest snake is 21. I had a 19-footer that I actually traded for that indigo snake. Didn't fit in breeding plans anymore. That's how I got the indigo. And we do have an 18-foot retic that's not too friendly. It's also a lavender albino tiger. And then Octavia, our 27-year-old berm, at around 18 feet as well. Those are the top 4. Those are the top biggest we have here. That is dropping off significantly.
That's impressive, dude. To stick with it like that, that's great. And it's great to hear you got food sources, and you respect their boundaries. We're not going to bug them at night. I mean, I totally get it. I wouldn't go into my chondros enclosures at night, unless it's like, with food, with tongs, and then just close them back up and leave them alone. It's just a bad idea. You disrupt their, and much less getting bit. You're just disrupting their pattern and stressing them. So that's very cool.
Exactly, and you have to plan for that too. We talk about safety with the venomous. I mean, even right now, everything's good to go. I've got my bite protocols, my keys at the door, my wallet with all my insurance and everything on it, in case I did mess up on this live and I got tagged and had to hit the end button, go to the hospital. Same with retics. You don't want to work alone with them. You can't. I don't care how strong you are. If you're the strongest 6'5" man and you've got a 25-foot snake, it's still not a good idea to work alone with it.
No.
It's always good to have somebody with you, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a friend. I usually have at least one friend come over or something a week. Don't do it. He's starting to get mad. Be with you when you're doing it. So there we go. Now you're being sweet. So always have that little bit of backup. Oh, that's going in my head.
Absolutely. Like my buddy's got a big retic, and it's manageable right now. But once he gets right to a certain size, I'm going to have to go over there and help him, with it. Just, so somebody's there and he's aware of that. He's like, dude, I make sure, especially when he gets big like that. He's 8 feet right now, so not a big deal. But yeah, definitely when he gets bigger, he's going to need two guys.
Cheeseburger's a sweetheart. Like I said, she's the nicest retic. I always say she has she switched her brain with this one because she acts like a Burmese and this one usually wants to act like a retic. But at the end of the day, she's still a 21-foot animal with a lot of power. A few months ago, I had her at a local a little showing. And I had her out on the ground. It was through no fault of her own. She was out and she was moving. And I had one friend trying to put her back on one side, another one on the other side. And in the middle, she had my ankle wrapped around. And she started to kind of twist herself. And if she didn't let go, it would have snapped my ankle so easily. So it's just one of those things you have to be super careful of.
Wow.
You have to know where you're doing it. So she didn't mean it. It wasn't out of aggression. It wasn't out of food. It's just, I was just something that she could hang on to because she wasn't ready to go back in the bucket. She didn't want to be moved. So she tied around me like she would a tree or a table post or anything else. So you have to respect the power of them too. And, again, I don't care how strong you are. You're not going to win a fight with a retic on its worst day.
No, absolutely not.
And we do keep things too. One of the best things is keeping some type of like stronger alcohol in there too if they do clamp down. We did have a pretty bad bite here about a year ago.
Do you take a quick swig and just knock the pain back?
Yeah, well that's one way to do it too. Just take a quick swig and forget about it and hope the best for your buddy. But that'll burn them. So I mean not permanently. It's kind of like pepper spray in a way.
Right, I've heard vodka's a good one.
As close as you can get to it. That straight vodka or something. Just pour it on them. They'll let go eventually. But yeah, some of those bites can be nasty. There's a few. I'd much rather get tagged by a couple of the weaker venomous snakes than I would some of those giant retics.
Really? Wow. Okay.
They're powerful. So.
I'm gonna sound like the old man that I am. Back in my day, we had all imports, and we used to keep bitter apple. We'd spray bitter apple in their mouth. Them frickers let go, or then we'd drown them in a bucket till they let go.
That could work too. I just know that's one of the strongest. He's not going to permanently damage them, and you want to get them off as fast as possible because those jaws and those teeth are going to hurt. Luckily, I've only ever been the biggest snake I was tagged by was a 14-footer, and that was not too bad. The really bad bite case we had it was my 19-footer that I traded. She was something else.
Get off my lawn.
My 8 foot when she was 8 foot, my berm got me right here wrapped up on me. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, and it was my fault. I mean, it was on me. I shouldn't have been handling rats and then handling her, right? I was young and lesson learned, but just to pry that, right, just to get that snake off of me was, was,
I think my worst snake bite was an
It was a
olive
chore.
python that did the same thing, Dred. It got the outside of my hand, and then she just looped all of my arm.
Yeah.
And it took me and my coworker all three hands to get her unwrapped. And even then, she didn't. The problem was she was pissed, and so she just latched, and she just kind of was working it. And I mean, it wasn't needing stitches or nothing that bad, but as far as depth and the number of punctures, that was probably the worst bite I had because she hung on and she meant it, and then she saw
Oh,
back
yeah.
and forth. And she was only like 6 foot, but she was wild caught. She was not friendly, and with that coil and tug, that really did it. That was kind of that's what made it worse. And that was many, many years ago, but I totally know what you mean, man. When they latch on with that, especially with something, dude, you're talking 15, 18, 20 foot, that head is as big as our head, if not bigger. Like that's a huge jaw. So
well, think about it. Their teeth are like this, right?
Yeah,
They
fish
grab, you try to pull away, they got you. You got to go the opposite direction. It's a chore. Or use the alcohol or some other method to get them to let go. I was not aware of that at the time, right? So I did what I had to do and got her loose.
Yeah.
But no big deal. My fault nonetheless.
one for you, one for Doctor.
Right? No doubt. No doubt.
All right, brother.
That's
Well,
the
we've
thing,
kept
TJ,
up about
this
2.5 hours. You guys want to wrap this baby up?
Have we really
Absolutely.
been rolling that long?
Yeah, brother. Just about.
Dude.
Oh wow. Yeah, I'm not used to being live this long. It's a lot easier with a second person or multiple people.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We usually, sometimes it'll run like this and you don't
Dude,
even
we'll
realize
go 3.5
how long it's been.
hours. And we wouldn't do it if there weren't still people interactive and the viewership wasn't up. And sometimes it's crazy, but we just kind of let things flow and there's no hard finish time. And there really has been some lives that we've gone long. It just goes on and on because people, it's impressive. So it's always, every week is different, man. It's always a good time though.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on, man. It's been an absolute blast.
Dude, thanks so much. And thanks for the face reveal, Bruce Wayne.
You
Yeah,
bet.
no, right? I guess it's about time. I stopped recording from the other angle.
We got our friend Jason. He's a basement pythons, and I kid him a bunch till he did our show. And we always see his hand showing ball pythons, and you never see his face ever. So I always, and he did a face reveal on our show as well. It was fantastic. So that's it.
Dude, you're welcome at the campfire anytime, as I like to say. We want to extend that. Okay? The campfire is always burning. You're always welcome to show up.
Absolutely, y'all. Thank you so much.
Dude, thanks for the education, and thanks for sharing. You have a good rest of the night, my friend. And we'll
Guys,
see you down.
much applause for His Stop Exotic showing these cool animals. Right? Come on, standing ovation. Let's give him the wave. Woo! Let's do it. Right?
Thank you
Here we
guys so
go.
much.
Come
I'll
on.
see you again soon.
Yeah, buddy, for sure. Thanks, man. I hope you had a great time. See you.
Absolutely.